The automatic doors hissed open at 11:47 p.m., and she walked in wearing wrinkled scrubs 2 sizes too big, holding a coffee-stained ID badge that read temporary staff. Nobody looked up. Nobody cared. Redwood Valley Medical Center's night shift had seen 100 Tempe nurses drift through, faces you forgot before morning. But then she spoke. Her voice cut through the chaos of the ER like a scalpel through skin, flat and cold. "Who's running this trauma bay?" Doctor. Marcus Webb, 10 years out of residency and still wearing his ego like a medal, barely glanced at her. "I am. And you are?" She didn't answer, just walked past him, scanned the monitors, checked the crash cart, repositioned the defibrillator paddles with one hand, moved like she'd done it 10,000 times. A paramedic wheeling in a chest pain case stopped mid-stride, his face going white. He stared at her back, then whispered to his partner, "No, that can't be her." If you want to see how far a ghost from the operating table can go when the rules don't apply anymore, stay with me until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And if you've ever been underestimated, you'll want to see what happens next. The fluorescent lights in Redwood Valley Medical Center buzzed like dying insects. It was the kind of sound you stopped hearing after your first week, but Evelyn Carter noticed it anyway. She noticed everything. The scuff marks on the linoleum where gurneys had scraped for years. The coffee stain on the wall behind the nurse's station that nobody bothered to clean. The way Dr. Webb's hand trembled just slightly when he signed off on discharge papers, not from nerves, but from too much caffeine and too little sleep. She stood near the supply closet, arms crossed, watching the controlled chaos of a Saturday night ER, chest pains, broken bones, a kid with a Lego stuck up his nose. Standard fare. The regular staff moved around her like water around a stone, not hostile exactly, just indifferent. She was a temp, a placeholder. Someone to fill a scheduling gap because Jenny Kowalski called in sick and nobody else wanted to cover. "Hey, temp!" A nurse named Brianna gestured from across the bay without looking up from her tablet. "We need vitals on bed 7, just the basics." Evelyn didn't respond immediately. She was watching the monitors, counting the seconds between heartbeats on 3 different patients simultaneously, calculating medication timing in her head. Old habits. "You hear me?" "I heard you." Brianna finally looked up, irritated. "Then move." Evelyn moved, not because of the tone, but because bed 7 had a 72-year-old man whose pulse ox had dropped 2 points in the last 90 seconds, and nobody else had noticed. She crossed the ER in 8 strides, pulled the blood pressure cuff from the wall mount, and wrapped it around his arm in one smooth motion. The old man blinked at her. "You knew?" "For tonight." "You don't look like the others." "I'm not." His blood pressure read 168 over 94, high but stable, pulse ox climbing back to 96. She adjusted his nasal cannula, someone had kinked the tubing, and his breathing eased immediately. "Thanks," he said. She nodded and walked back to her corner without filing a report. Brianna could do that. Brianna had the tablet. Dr. Webb swept past, white coat flaring behind him like a cape. He was talking to a resident, a kid who looked about 12 and terrified. "The key to emergency medicine," Webb was saying, "is pattern recognition. You see enough cases, you start to know what's critical and what's noise. That's what separates us from the temps and the warm bodies they send from the agency." The resident nodded eagerly, scribbling notes. Evelyn said nothing, just leaned against the wall and sipped her coffee, which had gone cold an hour ago. At 12:14 a.m., the first call came in. Dispatch crackled through the overhead speaker. "Redwood Valley, be advised. MVA on Highway 9, multiple vehicles, unknown number of casualties. First unit en route, ETA 12 minutes. Webb straightened, suddenly alert. "How many vehicles?" "At least 4 confirmed, possible more. Fire department on scene." "All right, people, let's prep." Webb clapped his hands twice, sharp and commanding. "I want 2 trauma bays cleared, full resuscitation setups, and get ortho on standby. This is going to be messy." The ER kicked into a higher gear. Nurses rushed to clear beds, residents scrambled to set up equipment, and the controlled chaos tightened into something focused, purposeful. Evelyn stayed where she was, watching the choreography. They were good. Not great, but good. Webb had drilled them well enough. Brianna shoved past her, arms full of IV bags. Out of the way! Evelyn stepped aside. At 12:26, the first ambulance roared into the bay. Paramedics exploded through the doors, one pumping a bag valve mask, the other barking vitals. Male, mid-30s, ejected from vehicle, GCS-7, BP 80 over palp, tachy at 140. Webb was already moving. Trauma 1, let's go. Get him on the monitors, 2 large-bore IVs, type and cross for 6 units, and someone call surgery. They swarmed the patient, a choreographed frenzy of hands and voices. Evelyn watched from the periphery, reading the monitors upside down from 15 feet away. Pneumothorax, left side. They'd need a chest tube in the next 3 minutes, or he'd code. Webb was focused on the abdomen, palpating for internal bleeding. Good instinct, but he was missing the lung. Doctor. Evelyn's voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise. Webb didn't look up. Not now. Left lung. He's not moving air. I said not now. A resident glanced at the monitor, frowned, and moved to the patient's side with a stethoscope. 5 seconds later, his eyes widened. Diminished breath sounds, left side. He's got a pneumo. Webb's head snapped up, and for a fraction of a second his eyes flicked to Evelyn. Then he barked, "Chest tube tray, now, someone prep the site." They had it in within 2 minutes. The patient's sats climbed. Webb exhaled, wiped his forehead, and turned to the resident. "Good catch." The resident opened his mouth, hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks." Evelyn said nothing, just turned and walked back to her spot by the supply closet. At 12:41, the second ambulance arrived, then the third, then 2 more, almost simultaneously. The ER filled with blood and screaming and the mechanical hiss of ventilators. A teenager with a shattered femur. A woman with a head lac and a possible skull fracture. A driver with a steering column embedded in his chest. Webb was everywhere, moving between bays, giving orders, making snap decisions. He was good under pressure. Evelyn could see that, but he was also stretched thin, and his judgment was starting to slip. He put the teenager in trauma 2 and the chest trauma in trauma 3, which was backward. The chest trauma needed the bigger room, better equipment. Nobody questioned him. Nobody dared. At 1:03, a paramedic Evelyn hadn't seen before wheeled in a woman on a backboard, neck braced, covered in glass fragments. Female, early 50s, rollover MVA, stable vitals, but complaining of back pain. Minor injuries bay, Webb said without looking. We're full up in trauma. Are you sure? She's got midline tenderness and I said minor injuries. We've got critical patients. She can wait. The paramedic hesitated, then nodded and wheeled the woman toward the far corner. Evelyn followed. The woman was conscious, scared, gripping the side rails of the gurney. Am I going to be okay? Let me take a look. Evelyn pulled on gloves, ran her hands down the woman's spine, palpated each vertebra. C4, C5, C6, all stable. Thoracic region, also stable. But when she reached L2, the woman gasped. That hurt? Yes, sharp. Evelyn pressed gently. The spinous process shifted under her fingers. Unstable fracture. If they moved her wrong, if they sat her up or let her twist, she could sever her spinal cord. Evelyn straightened, pulled off her gloves, and walked directly to Webb. He was suturing a scalp lac, bent over the patient, focused. The woman in minor injuries has a lumbar fracture, unstable. She needs imaging and immobilization now. Webb didn't stop suturing. I triaged her. She's stable. She's stable because she hasn't moved. If someone tries to sit her up, then tell them not to sit her up. His voice was clipped, impatient. I've got 3 critical traumas and a kid who might lose his leg. I don't have time for maybes. It's not a maybe. Now he looked up, eyes hard. You've been here for 2 hours. I've been practicing emergency medicine for a decade. I know what I'm doing. Evelyn held his gaze for 3 seconds. Then she turned and walked back to the woman. What did he say? The woman asked, voice tight with fear. He's busy. I'm going to take care of you. Evelyn grabbed a backboard, extra padding, and cervical blocks from the supply room. She immobilized the woman's spine herself, triple-checked the alignment, and flagged down a radiology tech who was passing by. I need a CT on this patient, lumbar spine, Full series. The tech glanced toward the trauma bays, hesitating. Dr. Webb didn't order. Oh, I'm ordering it. But are you going to argue or are you going to get the scan? The tech swallowed, then nodded. I'll get her in the queue. At 1:47, the scan came back. Burst fracture of L2 with posterior element displacement. One wrong move and she would have been paralyzed from the waist down. The radiologist called Webb directly. Evelyn watched from across the room as Webb pulled up the images on his tablet, his expression shifting from irritation to something else. Something colder. He walked over to where Evelyn was standing. The ER had quieted slightly. Most of the critical cases were stabilized. Surgery teams were en route, and the chaos had settled into a tense, exhausted rhythm. You were right, Webb said. His voice was flat, neither apologetic nor grateful, just factual. I know. Where did you train? Somewhere else. That's not an answer. Evelyn looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the pride holding his spine straight, the fear underneath that he'd almost missed something catastrophic. You did good tonight, she said. You kept people alive. But you're not listening. Webb's jaw tightened. I don't have time for philosophy lessons from a temp nurse. Then don't ask questions you don't want answered. She walked away before he could respond. At 2:15, a new case rolled in. Not from the highway crash. This one was different. A man in his 60s, chest pain radiating to his jaw, diaphoretic, pale. Classic MY presentation. Get him on the monitors, Webb ordered. Start an IV, draw troponins, EKG stat, and let's get cardiology down here. They moved efficiently. The EKG came back in 90 seconds. ST elevation in leads 2, 3, and a VF. Inferior wall MI. He needed the cath lab, and he needed it 10 minutes ago. But the cath lab was full. The on-call cardiologist was in the middle of another case and wouldn't be available for at least 40 minutes. Webb swore under his breath. Start him on aspirin, heparin, and nitro. We'll have to stabilize him and wait. Evelyn was standing at the edge of the room, watching the monitor. The man's rhythm was starting to drift. Frequent PVCs. His heart was irritable, angry, one bad beat away from going into VTAC, or worse. He's not going to last 40 minutes, she said quietly. Webb spun on her. What do you suggest? I can't magic up a cath lab. You can prep him for thrombolytics. We don't use thrombolytics anymore. It's all PCI now. Standard of care. Standard of care assumes you have access to PCI. You don't. He's deteriorating. You give him alteplase now, you might save enough myocardium to keep him alive until the lab opens up. Webb stared at her. Thrombolytics have a higher complication rate. Bleeding, stroke risk, lower than the risk of him coding in the next 20 minutes. The room had gone quiet. Every nurse, every resident was watching them. Webb's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Who the hell are you? Evelyn didn't answer. The monitor beeped. The man's rhythm slipped into a run of VTAC. 6 beats, then back to sinus. His eyes rolled back. He's about to arrest, Evelyn said. Webb looked at the monitor, at the man, at Evelyn, then he turned to the resident. Get me alteplase well, now. They pushed the thrombolytic. The man's rhythm stabilized. His pain eased. Color started to return to his face. 20 minutes later, the cath lab called. They were ready. The man was wheeled out, still alive, still fighting. Webb stood in the middle of the trauma bay, staring at the empty gurney. Then he looked at Evelyn. Where did you work before this? Overseas. Doing what? Keeping people alive. That's still not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. At 3:22, one of the paramedics from the first wave of ambulances came back into the ER. He'd been quiet all night, hovering at the edges, watching Evelyn. Now he walked directly up to her. I know you, he said. Evelyn looked at him. I don't think so. Yeah, I do. He stopped, his face going pale. You were in the service, combat medic, special operations. The room didn't exactly go silent, but the energy shifted. People were listening now. Evelyn's expression didn't change. You're mistaken. No, I'm not. I saw you at Kandahar. You ran triage after that IED hit the convoy outside the wire. 12 casualties in 30 minutes, and you didn't lose a single one. They called you. He stopped himself, glancing around. They called you the ghost. Webb stepped forward. What are you talking about? The paramedic looked between them, suddenly uncertain. I might be wrong. You're not wrong, Evelyn said quietly. You're just talking too much. She turned and walked toward the break room, leaving a wake of silence behind her. Webb followed her. Is that true? Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Evelyn poured herself another cup of coffee from the ancient machine in the corner. It was burnt and bitter, but it was hot. I did my job, same as you're doing yours. Combat medicine is different. Not as different as you think. Webb leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Why are you here? In a temp position. If you've got that kind of experience, you could be running a trauma program somewhere. Maybe I don't want to run anything. Or maybe you're running from something. Evelyn met his eyes over the rim of her coffee cup. You should get back to your patients, doctor. This conversation isn't over. Yes, she said. It is. At 4:03, the radio crackled again. Redwood Valley, be advised. Incoming priority 1 trauma. Pediatric patient, 8 years old, struck by vehicle, CPR in progress, ETA 4 minutes. The exhaustion in the room evaporated. Everyone moved. Webb was already calling orders. Clear trauma 1. I want the best people we have, and get pediatric surgery on the phone right now. The ambulance arrived at 4:07. The paramedics were still doing compressions when they wheeled the boy in. A small, limp figure on a board that looked far too big for him. His face was pale, lips blue, blood matting his dark hair. 8-year-old male, hit by a car going approximately 40 miles per hour, thrown 15 feet, CPR initiated on scene at 3 minutes, 1 round of EP given. No pulse, no respirations. They transferred him to the table and Webb took over compressions without missing a beat. Get me an airway. Someone start another IV. Push another round of epi. And where the hell is surgery? The boy's chest was caved in on the left side. Flail chest. Multiple rib fractures. Evelyn could see it from across the room. But there was something else. The way his abdomen was distended. The way blood was pooling in the dependent areas. He was bleeding out internally, and fast. Webb intubated him, got the airway secured, but the boy's heart rhythm was still flatline. Come on, kid. Come on. Evelyn stepped forward. He's got a ruptured spleen, probably liver lac too. You need to crack his chest. Webb's head whipped toward her. What? He's exsanguinating. You can do compressions all night, but if you don't control the bleeding, he's dead. We don't crack chests in the ER unless there's no other option. There isn't. A senior surgeon, Dr. Ellen Voss, pushed through the doors at that moment, still tying her surgical mask. What have we got? Pediatric trauma, full arrest, CPR ongoing, Webb started. He needs a thoracotomy, Evelyn interrupted. Now. Voss looked at Evelyn, then at the monitor, then at the boy. Her eyes went cold and focused. She's right. Get me a thoracotomy tray. Webb stepped back, pale. Ellen, if we open him here, if we don't, he dies on this table in the next 90 seconds. Your call. Webb looked at the boy, at the monitor, at Evelyn. Then he nodded. Do it. Voss moved like lightning. Scalpel in hand, she made the incision, and Evelyn was already there, retracting, suctioning, keeping the field clear. They worked in perfect tandem, no words needed. Voss clamped the descending aorta, and Evelyn was already massaging the boy's heart directly, rhythmic, controlled. I've got a pulse, Voss said. Weak, but it's there. Bleeding's from the spleen, Evelyn said. Liver's intact. OR is ready, someone called from the door. They moved the boy, still open, still fighting, up to surgery. Voss went with him, hands still inside his chest. Evelyn stepped back, pulled off her gloves, and walked to the sink to wash the blood off her hands. Webb was standing in the middle of the trauma bay, staring at the blood-soaked table. How did you know? I've seen it before. Where? She didn't answer. At 5:47, the sun started to rise. The ER had finally quieted. The last of the crash victims were either in surgery, admitted, or discharged. The boy was still alive, still in the OR, but stable. Evelyn sat in the break room staring at her cold coffee. Brianna walked in, looking exhausted. She poured herself a cup, then glanced at Evelyn. That was insane. It was a bad night. You were... you... Brianna trailed off, then shook her head. Sorry I was rude earlier. You weren't rude, you were busy. Still. They sat in silence for a moment. Are you coming back? Brianna asked. I don't know. You should. We could use someone like you. Evelyn didn't respond. At 6:15, Dr. Voss came down from surgery. She found Evelyn in the break room, still sitting in the same chair. The boy's stable, Voss said. We removed his spleen, repaired a liver lac we didn't catch initially, and closed him up. He's got a long recovery, but he's going to make it. Good. Voss sat down across from her. I don't know who you are, and I don't care, but you saved that kid's life. You saved his life. I just pointed you in the right direction. Don't do that. Don't diminish what you did. Voss leaned forward. I've been a trauma surgeon for 18 years. I've worked with combat medics before. I know what I saw tonight. Evelyn said nothing. Webb's asking questions. He wants to know who you are, where you trained, why you're here. Let him ask. Oh, the hospital administrator is going to want answers too. You made a lot of decisions tonight that were outside your scope as a temp nurse. I made the right decisions. I know, but that's not how bureaucracy works. Voss stood up, stretched her back. For what it's worth, I'm glad you were here. She left. At 7:02, Evelyn's shift was officially over. She gathered her things from her locker, keys, wallet, the paperback book she'd brought but never opened. She was walking toward the exit when Webb intercepted her in the hallway. We need to talk. I'm off the clock. I don't care. Evelyn stopped, turned to face him. What do you want, doctor? I want to know why someone with your level of skill is working a temp shift in a second-tier community hospital. Maybe I like the quiet. Bullshit. Tonight wasn't quiet, and you thrived. You saw things I missed. You made calls that saved lives. That's not someone who wants quiet. Evelyn studied him, saw the exhaustion, the confusion, the bruised pride. You did good work tonight. Your patients are alive because you made the right calls when it mattered. Some of them are alive because you made the right calls. Then take the win and move on. Webb ran a hand through his hair. The administrator wants to meet with you. So does the chief of staff. They want to offer you a permanent position. I'm not interested. Why not? Because I don't want it. That's not a reason. It's the only one you're getting. She turned to leave, but Webb grabbed her arm. Not hard, just enough to stop her. The paramedic was right, wasn't he? You were military, special operations, combat medicine. Evelyn looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face. Let go. He did, immediately. I'm sorry. You want answers. I understand, but you're not going to get them. Why? Because I'm not that person anymore. She walked away, and this time he didn't follow. Evelyn made it to the parking lot before her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. It's important. Voss. She deleted it. Another text, this time from the hospital administrator. Miss Carter, please contact my office at your earliest convenience. We'd like to discuss your future with Redwood Valley Medical Center. She deleted that one too. She was unlocking her car when she heard the sirens. Distant at first, then growing louder. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Evelyn looked up. 3 black SUVs with government plates were pulling into the hospital entrance, followed by 2 military vehicles she recognized immediately. Humvees. Not National Guard. These were active duty, the real deal. People started spilling out, men in uniform, officers, and one woman in a dress uniform with stars on her shoulders. Evelyn's heart, which had remained steady through 12 hours of chaos, skipped a beat. The woman in the dress uniform was scanning the parking lot, and when her eyes landed on Evelyn, she stopped, pointed. 2 soldiers started moving toward her. Evelyn didn't run, didn't move, just stood there, car keys in hand, watching them approach. The woman in the dress uniform followed, her stride purposeful, authoritative. When she was 10 feet away, she stopped and saluted. Captain Carter, she said, voice crisp and formal. It's been a long time. Evelyn didn't return the salute. I'm not a captain anymore. The Army disagrees. The woman lowered her hand. We've been looking for you for 6 months. I'm not hiding. You're not exactly making yourself easy to find either. Behind them, Webb had come outside, along with half the ER staff. They were all staring now. The woman glanced at them, then back at Evelyn. We need to talk. Somewhere private. I have nothing to say. Then you can listen. The woman's voice dropped just slightly. This isn't a request, Captain. This is orders. Evelyn felt the weight of every eye on her back, felt the questions forming, the rumors that would start before she even left the parking lot. She looked at the woman in the dress uniform, at the soldiers flanking her, at the Humvees idling at the entrance. Then she looked back at the hospital, at the ER windows where people were pressed against the glass, watching. Webb was standing at the front of the crowd, his face pale, his expression caught somewhere between shock and understanding. Evelyn turned back to the woman. You have 5 minutes. That's all I need. They walked toward the lead SUV, and as Evelyn climbed into the back seat, she heard Webb's voice, distant but clear. Who the hell is she? Nobody answered, because nobody knew. And the people who did know weren't talking. The SUV smelled like leather and gun oil. Evelyn sat in the back seat, hands loose in her lap, eyes on the woman across from her. Brigadier General Rachel Kincaid. They'd met once before, 4 years ago, in a tent outside Mosul when Evelyn's unit had pulled 3 wounded Marines out of a collapsed building under fire. Kincaid had been a colonel then, lean and hungry, the kind of officer who remembered names and never forgot a face. You look different, Kincaid said. So do you. Stars will do that. Kincaid didn't smile. You disappeared, Captain. Honorable discharge, clean record, and then nothing, no forwarding address, no contact, no trace. I wanted it that way. I figured. Kincaid pulled a tablet from the seat pocket, tapped the screen twice, and turned it toward Evelyn. Recognize this? The screen showed a satellite image of a compound, desert terrain, walls 12 feet high, guard towers at each corner. Evelyn recognized it immediately. She'd spent 3 months there, running medical operations for a joint task force that officially didn't exist. That's classified, Evelyn said. Everything about you is classified. Kincaid pulled the tablet back, which makes it very inconvenient when you show up on a hospital security camera saving a kid's life with a field thoracotomy in a civilian ER. Nobody told me I couldn't work. Nobody told you to ghost an entire chain of command either. Kincaid leaned forward, elbows on her knees. You were one of the best combat medics we had. 3 tours, 217 lives saved under fire, Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor device, and then you just walked away. I earned my discharge. You did, but that doesn't mean we stopped needing you. Evelyn looked out the window. The ER staff was still gathered outside, a knot of white coats and scrubs, all staring at the SUV. Webb was at the front, arms crossed, face unreadable. What do you want, General? I want you back. No. I haven't told you what the job is yet. Doesn't matter. The answer's still no. Kincaid sat back, studying her. You've been running temp shifts for 6 months, moving every few weeks, never staying long enough for anyone to ask questions. That's not a life, Captain. That's hiding. Maybe I like hiding. Bullshit. You walked into that ER and ran it like you owned the place. You can't help yourself. You see a problem, you fix it. You see someone dying, you save them. It's who you are. Evelyn met her eyes. I'm not that person anymore. Then who are you? The question hung in the air between them. Outside, the sun was fully up now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Evelyn could see her reflection in the window, faint and ghost-like. She looked tired, older than 34, the kind of tired that sleep didn't fix. I'm nobody, she said finally. Kincaid pulled out a folder, set it on the seat between them. Open it. I don't want to. Open it anyway. Evelyn didn't move for a long moment. Then she reached for the folder, flipped it open. Inside were photographs. A medical facility. Clean, modern, military insignia on the walls. But something about it was wrong. The windows were barred. The doors had reinforced locks. And in one photo, she could see armed guards standing outside what looked like patient rooms. What is this? Blackstone Forward Operating Medical Unit. It's a private military contractor facility operating in 3 countries under DoD contracts. They provide battlefield medical support for coalition forces and allied nations. Private contractors. Evelyn's voice went flat. Mercenaries. They prefer the term security consultants, but yeah, mercenaries. Kincaid tapped one of the photos. 6 weeks ago, we started getting reports, substandard care, medication shortages, patients being prioritized based on rank and nationality instead of medical need. And then 3 days ago, a Navy SEAL died in their facility from complications that should have been treatable. Evelyn looked up sharply. What kind of complications? Sepsis. From a wound infection that went untreated for 18 hours because the facility was short-staffed and the attending physician was too busy treating a defense contractor's kid who had a sprained ankle. Jesus. It gets worse. The SEAL's family is asking questions, Congress is asking questions, and Blackstone is stonewalling. They're citing operational security, patient privacy, all the usual corporate bullshit. But we need someone on the inside, someone who knows combat medicine, someone who can assess the situation and report back. Evelyn closed the folder, pushed it back across the seat. Send an inspector general team. We tried. They got the sanitized tour, saw nothing but clean rooms and smiling staff. Blackstone knew they were coming. They always know. Then send someone undercover. We are. Kincaid picked up the folder, held it out again. We're sending you. I said no. A good man died, Captain. A warrior. And he died because someone put profit over care. If you won't do it for the Army, do it for him. Evelyn stared at the folder, at Kincaid, at the world outside the window that had suddenly gotten a lot more complicated. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. You go in as a contractor hire, assess the operation, document everything, and get out. And then what? Then we shut them down. Evelyn took the folder, opened it again, looked at the photos, at the clean hallways that smelled like lies, at the locked doors that shouldn't exist in a medical facility. I'm not military anymore. I don't take orders. I'm not giving you orders. I'm asking. What's the difference? Kincaid smiled for the first time, tight and humorless. Orders you have to follow, requests you can refuse. But you won't. How do you know? Because you're still holding the folder. Evelyn looked down. Kincaid was right. She was still holding it, still reading, already planning in the back of her mind how she'd approach it, what she'd look for, how she'd stay hidden. Damn it. I'll take that as a yes. I haven't said yes. You haven't said no either. Not really. Kincaid pulled out a phone, checked the screen. You've got 24 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires and we find someone else. There is no one else. That's why you came here. True, but I'm still giving you 24 hours. Kincaid reached for the door handle, paused. That kid you saved last night, the 8-year-old. He's going to grow up, graduate high school, maybe have kids of his own someday. All because you were in the right place at the right time and you gave a damn. That SEAL's kids? They don't get that. He's gone. And his death was preventable. She opened the door, stepped out into the morning light. Evelyn sat alone in the SUV for a moment, the folder heavy in her hands. Then she climbed out, walked past the soldiers, past Kincaid, past the Humvees, and headed toward her car. Webb was waiting by the hood, blocking her path. Who was that? Nobody. That wasn't nobody. That was a general, with an armed escort. Step aside, Doctor. Not until you tell me what the hell is going on. Evelyn stopped, close enough that she could see the fear in his eyes. Not fear of her. Fear of what he didn't know, what he couldn't control. You want answers? Go ask your administrator. Go ask the hospital board. I'm sure they'll have plenty to say. I'm asking you. And I'm not answering. She moved past him, but he grabbed her wrist. His grip was firm, desperate. Wait, please. Evelyn looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. I've asked you once already to let go. I won't ask again. He released her immediately, stepped back. I'm sorry. You saved lives tonight. You were incredible. And then the Army shows up and everyone's treating you like you're some kind of operative or spy or I'm not a spy. Then what are you? I'm someone who wants to be left alone. She got in her car, started the engine, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, she could see Webb standing in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, watching her disappear. Evelyn drove for an hour before pulling into a truck stop off Interstate 40. She sat in the parking lot, engine off, staring at the folder Kincaid had given her. Inside were detailed floor plans of the Blackstone facility, personnel files, incident reports, everything she'd need to walk in and start asking the right questions. She opened her phone, pulled up a number she hadn't called in 8 months, and hit dial. 3 rings. Then a woman's voice, rough from cigarettes and too many nights in too many bars. "Carter, didn't think I'd hear from you again." "I need a favor, Maggie." "Everyone needs favors. What makes you special?" "I'm not asking for free." "Now we're talking. What do you need?" "Background check on a private military contractor, Blackstone Medical Services. I need to know who runs it, who funds it, and where the bodies are buried." "Literal bodies or figurative?" "Both." Maggie laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. "This is going to cost you." "How much?" $5,000, and you owe me a drink next time you're stateside." "I'm stateside now." "Then you owe me 2 drinks." There was a pause, the sound of typing. "Give me 72 hours. I'll send you everything I find." "I need it in 24. "Then it'll cost you 8. "Done." Evelyn hung up, closed the folder, and leaned back in her seat. The sun was climbing higher now, burning off the morning haze, and the truck stop was starting to fill with travelers, families with kids, truckers grabbing coffee. Normal people living normal lives. She envied them. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The boy is stable. Surgery went well. Thought you'd want to know. Voss." Evelyn stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "Thanks." Another buzz, this time from Webb. "I'm sorry for grabbing you. That was out of line, but if you ever want to talk, my door is open." She didn't respond. At noon, she checked into a motel 6 miles outside Redwood Valley, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. She paid cash, carried her single duffel bag upstairs, and locked the door behind her. The room smelled like stale smoke and cheap disinfectant, but the bed was clean enough and the lock worked. She set the folder on the desk, spread out the contents, and started reading. Really reading. Blackstone Medical Services had been founded 8 years ago by a former Army surgeon named Dr. Trevor Haynes. On paper, it was a legitimate operation, contracts with the Department of Defense, glowing reviews from military liaisons, state-of-the-art facilities in undisclosed locations. But the deeper Evelyn dug, the more cracks she found. High staff turnover, complaints buried in bureaucratic language, incident reports that were filed and then mysteriously closed without follow-up. And then there was the money. Blackstone was pulling in $40 million a year in government contracts, but their operating costs didn't match. Facilities that should have cost $10 million to run were being maintained on budgets half that size. The difference was going somewhere, but the financial reports were vague, filled with line items like operational overhead and logistical support. Evelyn pulled out her laptop, connected to the motel's spotty Wi-Fi, and started digging. 2 hours later, she had a list of shell companies, offshore accounts, and a web of financial transactions that all pointed back to a single person, Dr. Trevor Haynes. He wasn't just running a medical facility, he was running a profit machine, and the patients were the collateral damage. Her phone rang. Kincaid. "Have you decided?" "I'm in." "Good. I'll have your credentials ready by tomorrow morning. You'll enter the facility as a contract hire, transferring in from another unit. Your cover story is that you're burned out from civilian work and looking for something more meaningful." Ironic. "I thought so too." Kincaid's voice turned serious. "This isn't a combat zone, Captain, but it's not safe either. Haynes has security, private contractors, ex-military, loyal to him. If they figure out who you are, they won't just fire you. They'll bury you." "Understood." "And Carter, don't try to be a hero. Your job is to observe and report, nothing more." "I'm not a hero, General. I'm just a nurse." Kincaid laughed, short and sharp. "You keep telling yourself that." She hung up. Evelyn spent the rest of the afternoon running through scenarios in her head. What she'd say, how she'd act, what questions to ask and which ones to avoid. By the time the sun set, she had a plan. Not a perfect plan, but good enough. At 8 p.m., there was a knock on her door. Evelyn tensed, hand moving instinctively to the knife she kept in her boot. She crossed the room silently, looked through the peephole. Webb. She opened the door halfway. How did you find me? You're not as invisible as you think. He looked exhausted, still wearing his white coat from the hospital. Can I come in? No. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Evelyn considered shutting the door in his face. Instead, she stepped aside and let him in. He walked to the center of the room, looked around at the sparse furniture, the folder spread out on the desk, the duffel bag by the bed. You're leaving, he said. I was always leaving. Where are you going? None of your business. Webb turned to face her. I talked to the administrator. He told me the Army requested your personnel file from the temp agency. They wouldn't say why, just that it was classified. And then I called a friend of mine who works at the VA, and he looked you up. You know what he found? Nothing. Exactly, nothing. Your service record is sealed. Your discharge paperwork is redacted. It's like you don't exist. Maybe I don't. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. Webb ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. You saved lives last night. You saw things I missed. You made calls that I wouldn't have had the guts to make. And then you just walked away like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Then why leave? Evelyn crossed her arms, leaned against the wall. You really want to know? Yeah, I do. Because staying means questions. Questions mean exposure. Exposure means I can't do the work I need to do. And the work matters more than your curiosity. Webb stared at her. What work? The kind that doesn't make the news. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Evelyn pushed off the wall, opened the door. You should go, doctor. You've got patients waiting. Actually, I took the night off. He didn't move toward the door. I wanted to ask you something. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. I'm not selling anything. I'm asking for help. That stopped her. Help with what? Webb pulled a folder from his coat pocket, set it on the desk next to Kincaid's documents. There's a kid, 16 years old, car accident 3 months ago. Traumatic brain injury. He's been in a coma ever since. The family wants to transfer him to a long-term care facility, but his vitals keep crashing. Blood pressure drops, heart rate spikes, no clear cause. I've run every test I can think of, consulted with neurology, cardiology, even infectious disease. Nobody can figure it out. Evelyn didn't touch the folder. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm out of ideas, and you see things other people don't. I'm not a doctor. No, but you're better than half the doctors I know. Webb met her eyes. I watched you last night. You didn't just treat patients. You read them. Like you could see inside their bodies, see what was broken before the tests even came back. That's not training. That's instinct. And I need that instinct right now because this kid is dying and I don't know why. Evelyn looked at the folder, at Webb, at the desperation in his eyes that reminded her of every commanding officer who'd ever asked her to do the impossible. I can't. You mean you won't? Same thing. No, it's not. Webb picked up the folder, held it out. His name is Tyler Brennan. He plays guitar. Wants to be a music teacher. His mom sits by his bed every day, reading him his favorite books, playing his favorite songs, waiting for him to wake up. And he's not going to wake up because something is killing him, and I can't see it. Evelyn took the folder, opened it. Inside were medical charts, lab results, imaging scans. She scanned them quickly, her brain automatically sorting data, looking for patterns. Blood pressure episodes every 18 to 20 hours. Heart rate variability correlated with nothing obvious, no infection markers, no drug interactions, no metabolic abnormalities. When do the episodes happen? She asked. Random. No pattern we can find. What time of day? Different every time. Morning, afternoon, night. Who's with him when they happen? Webb frowned. Usually his mother. Sometimes his sister. Why? Evelyn flipped through the charts again, found the timestamps. 2:15 p.m., 8:30 a.m., 11 p.m., 6:45 a.m. She pulled out her phone, opened the calculator app, started doing math. "What are you doing?" Webb asked. "Checking something." She looked up. "Does the mother bring anything with her? Food, drinks, personal items?" "She brings coffee from the same shop every day. Some kind of herbal thing, I think." "Why?" Evelyn closed the folder, handed it back. "Test the coffee." "What?" "Test the coffee for foreign substances. Specifically, look for anything that could cause autonomic instability. Beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, anything cardiotoxic." Webb's face went pale. "You think his mother is poisoning him?" "I think someone is. Whether it's his mother or someone else, I don't know. But those episodes aren't random. They're induced." That's insane. Why would a mother poison her own son? Insurance money, inheritance, guilt over something. I don't know and I don't care. But if you want to save that kid, you need to test the coffee, and you need to do it quietly. If I'm right, and you confront her directly, she'll panic and either overdose him or disappear. Webb looked at the folder like it had turned into a live grenade. If you're wrong, then the kid dies anyway, and you're back where you started. But if I'm right, you save his life. Evelyn opened the door wider. "Your choice, doctor." Webb stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, tucked the folder under his arm, and walked to the door. He stopped in the threshold, looked back. "Why did you help me? You could have said no." "I should have said no." "But you didn't." Evelyn didn't answer, just watched as he walked across the parking lot to his car, climbed in, and drove away. She closed the door, locked it, and leaned her forehead against the wood. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger, at herself for getting involved, at Webb for asking, at the kid's mother for being the kind of monster who poisoned her own child. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maggie. "Preliminary report attached. You're not going to like what I found." Evelyn opened the attachment. It was a list of names, former Blackstone employees who'd left under mysterious circumstances. 12 in the last 3 years. 2 were dead. Car accidents, both. 4 others had filed complaints with the Department of Labor and then mysteriously withdrawn them. The rest had simply vanished from public records. And at the top of the list was a note in Maggie's handwriting. "Haynes has friends in high places. DOD, Congress, private security firms. If you go after him, you're going after people who make problems disappear. Permanently." Evelyn deleted the message, wiped the phone's cache, and pulled the battery. Old habits. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Kincaid's folder, at the photos of the Blackstone facility that looked clean and professional, but smelled like death. She thought about the SEAL who died from sepsis, about Tyler Brennan slowly being poisoned by someone who was supposed to love him, about the 8-year-old kid with the crushed chest who would grow up because she'd been there at the right moment. Lives. All of it came down to lives. Who got saved? Who got forgotten? Who got sacrificed for profit or pride or some twisted version of love? At midnight, her phone rang. She'd put the battery back in, couldn't help herself. It was Webb. "You were right," he said. His voice was hollow. "We tested the coffee, digoxin, high levels, enough to cause cardiac instability without showing up on standard talk screens." "Did you confront her?" "Security did, quietly. She confessed. Said she couldn't handle the medical bills anymore, couldn't watch him suffer. She thought she was being merciful. There's nothing merciful about poisoning your own child." "I know," Webb's voice cracked. "I should have seen it. I should have known." "You couldn't have known. Munchausen by proxy is rare, and when it involves a coma patient, it's almost impossible to detect. You detected it in 5 minutes. I got lucky." "No. You saw what the rest of us missed." There was a long pause. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just make sure the kid gets the help he needs." "I will." Another pause. "Where are you going, Carter? And don't tell me it's none of my business. After tonight, I think I've earned the right to know." Evelyn looked at the folder on the desk, at the photos of the Blackstone facility, at the locked doors and barred windows and armed guards standing watch over people who should have been safe. "I'm going to do what I always do," she said. "I'm going to save lives. Alone? That's how it works best." "That's not how anything works best." Webb's voice turned firm. Listen, I don't know what the Army wants from you, and I don't know what you're walking into, but if you need help, I don't. If you need help, he continued, ignoring her, you have my number, day or night, no questions asked. Evelyn wanted to tell him to delete her number, to forget she existed, to go back to his comfortable life at Redwood Valley and pretend last night never happened. But she didn't. Because part of her, the part she'd tried to bury for 6 months, knew she might need him, might need someone on the outside who knew who she was and gave a damn. I'll keep that in mind, she said, and hung up. At 3 a.m., unable to sleep, she drove back to the hospital, parked in the far corner of the lot where the security cameras didn't reach, and just sat there, watching the ER entrance. Ambulances came and went. Staff rotated shifts. Life and death on an endless loop. Her phone buzzed. Kincaid. Your credentials are ready. Report to the staging area at 0800. Address attached. Don't be late. Evelyn looked at the address. It was a private airfield 2 hours south. Military transport, which meant wherever Blackstone was operating, it wasn't domestic. She started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove back to the motel. She had 4 hours to pack, plan, and prepare for a mission she still wasn't sure she should take. But Kincaid was right about one thing. She was still holding the folder, still reading, still planning, because that SEAL deserved justice. Tyler Brennan deserved justice. And every patient who'd walked into Blackstone expecting care and gotten profit margins instead deserved someone who gave a damn. At 7:30 a.m., she was on the road. The sunrise behind her painted the sky in blood reds and burnt oranges, and for a moment she let herself believe it was beautiful. The airfield was empty, except for a single C-130 Hercules sitting on the tarmac, engines already warming up. Kincaid was waiting at the base of the ramp, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 soldiers Evelyn didn't recognize. Cutting it close, Captain. I'm not a captain anymore. You are for the next 2 weeks. Kincaid handed her a manila envelope. New identity. Rebecca Stone, former civilian ER nurse, burned out from overwork, looking for a change. Your credentials are airtight. Blackstone's HR already approved your transfer. Evelyn opened the envelope, scanned the documents. Driver's license, nursing certifications, employment history. All fake, all perfect. Who else knows I'm going in? Just me and the Secretary of Defense. Nobody else. If this goes sideways, we'll disavow you. Comforting. It's not supposed to be comforting. It's supposed to be honest. Kincaid glanced at her watch. You've got 20 minutes before Wheels Up. Any questions? Yeah, what happens if I find something but can't prove it? Then you get creative. That's not a plan. It's the only plan you've got. Kincaid stepped closer, lowered her voice. Haynes is connected, powerful. If you come at him without ironclad evidence, he'll bury you and everyone who helped you. So don't come at him until you're ready to finish it. And if I can't finish it, then a lot of good people are going to keep dying. Kincaid stepped back, saluted. Good luck, Captain. Evelyn didn't return the salute, just climbed the ramp, found a seat in the cargo hold, and strapped in. The engines roared, the ramp closed, and the plane lifted off into a sky that looked too clear, too calm for what was coming. 6 hours later, they landed in a desert she didn't recognize. Hot, dry, the kind of place where the sun burned away anything soft. A jeep was waiting, driver silent behind mirrored sunglasses. He drove for 40 minutes through terrain that looked like Mars, all red sand and jagged rocks, until they crested a ridge and she saw it. Blackstone Forward Operating Medical Unit. It looked exactly like the photos. Clean, modern, professional, but the walls were too high, the windows too small, and the guards at the gate carried rifles like they expected trouble. The jeep stopped at the entrance. A man in scrubs approached, smiling, 40s, balding, soft hands that had never seen real work. Rebecca Stone? That's me. Welcome to Blackstone. I'm Dr. Alan Pierce, Deputy Medical Director. Dr. Haynes is in surgery right now, but he'll want to meet you later. He gestured toward the facility. Let me show you around. Evelyn followed him through the gates, and the moment she stepped inside, she knew. This wasn't a medical facility. It was a prison. Clean, efficient, but a prison nonetheless. And somewhere inside these walls, people were dying. The tour was quick. Pierce showed her the patient wards, the surgical suites, the supply rooms. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Like a set piece. Like something designed to pass inspection. "We run a tight ship here," Pierce was saying. "Dr. Haynes demands excellence. We have a 98% survival rate, which is exceptional given the conditions we operate under." "What about the other 2%? Pierce's smile faltered. "Combat medicine is never perfect, Ms. Stone. We do our best." They walked past a patient room. The door was cracked open. Evelyn glanced inside. A soldier, mid-20s, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. His IV bag was half empty, but the drip rate was wrong. Too slow. She could see it from the hallway. "That patient," she said. "What's his status?" Pierce glanced at the room. "Post-op recovery, appendectomy. He's fine. His IV rate is off. I'm sure it's been checked." "When?" Pierce's smile disappeared entirely. "Are you questioning our protocols?" "I'm asking a question." "Then let me answer it. Our protocols are reviewed and approved by military medical standards. If you have concerns, you can file a report. But I suggest you settle in before you start making accusations." Evelyn said nothing, just filed the information away, along with the look on Pierce's face. Defensive, angry, scared. She was shown to her quarters. A small room with a bed, a desk, and a locker. No windows. One door. She set her duffel bag down, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall. Her phone buzzed. Webb. "The kid woke up. Tyler. He's awake and talking. Doctors say full recovery expected. Thank you." She read the message 3 times, then deleted it. Another buzz. "Unknown number. You have 48 hours to find proof or get out. After that, Haynes will know you're not who you say you are." Kincaid Evelyn deleted that message too. Pulled the battery from the phone, lay back on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this facility, a SEAL had died. Somewhere in these halls, patients were being neglected, abused, sacrificed for profit. And somewhere, Dr. Trevor Haynes was counting his money and sleeping soundly. Not for much longer. At 11 p.m., when the facility had gone quiet, Evelyn slipped out of her room. The hallways were dimly lit, almost empty. A few nurses moved between stations, but they didn't look at her, didn't care. She made her way to the records room. The door was locked, but the lock was cheap. She had it open in 30 seconds, slipped inside, and closed the door behind her. The room was filled with filing cabinets, all neatly labeled. She found the section marked Incident Reports and started pulling files. 20 minutes later, she had a stack of documents that painted a picture uglier than she'd imagined. Medication errors, surgical complications, infections, deaths, all documented, all filed, and all closed without investigation. She pulled out her phone, battery reinstalled, and started taking photos. Click, click, click. The door opened behind her. She spun, ready to fight, and found herself staring at a nurse. Young, maybe 25. Tired eyes and a name tag that read Sarah. "You shouldn't be in here," Sarah said. "Neither should you." They stared at each other. Then Sarah stepped inside, closed the door, locked it. "You're the new hire," she said. "Rebecca Stone." "That's right." "You're not really Rebecca Stone, are you?" Evelyn didn't answer. Sarah pulled a folder from inside her scrubs, held it out. "I was hoping someone would come. Someone who gave a damn." Evelyn took the folder, opened it. Inside were more incident reports, more deaths, and at the bottom a handwritten note. They killed him. They killed Marcus. And they're going to kill more unless someone stops them. "Who's Marcus?" Evelyn asked. "My brother, Navy SEAL. He died here 3 weeks ago from sepsis." Sarah's voice broke. "They said it was bad luck, complications, but I saw his chart. I saw the orders. They delayed his antibiotics because a contractor's kid took priority, and by the time they got to him, it was too late." Evelyn looked at the note, at Sarah, at the grief and rage burning in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be sorry. Do something." "I'm trying." "Then try harder." Sarah reached for the door, paused. "Dr. Haynes knows something's wrong. He's been paranoid lately, watching everyone. If he figures out you're investigating, he'll have you removed, permanently." "Let him try." Sarah almost smiled. "Marcus would have liked you." She left, and Evelyn was alone again with the files, the photos, and the weight of too many deaths that should never have happened. She had 48 hours. She'd need less than 24. Evelyn spent the next 6 hours in her quarters, cross-referencing the files Sarah had given her with the photos she'd taken. 3 in the morning came and went, marked only by the distant sound of a generator kicking on somewhere in the facility. She worked by the light of her phone, spreading documents across the narrow bed in a pattern that would look like chaos to anyone else but made perfect sense to her. Marcus Riley, Navy SEAL, 28 years old, died from septic shock after a routine combat wound infection went untreated for 19 hours. The official incident report cited unforeseen complications and resource limitations. But Sarah's copy of his medical chart told a different story. Marcus had been triaged as stable and moved to a holding area while Dr. Haynes personally attended to a 14-year-old girl with a sprained wrist. The girl's father was a defense contractor exec worth $200 million. By the time anyone checked on Marcus again, his blood pressure had crashed and his organs were shutting down. They tried to save him then, throwing antibiotics and pressors at a body that had already given up. He died at 4:17 a.m. with his sister holding his hand, watching the monitors flatline while Haynes was 3 rooms away, finishing paperwork. Evelyn pulled up the financial records Maggie had sent, cross-referenced dates. On the day Marcus died, Blackstone Medical Services received a wire transfer of $3 million from a shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands. The corporation's board of directors included one name she recognized, the defense contractor's CFO. She photographed everything, uploaded it to an encrypted server Kincaid had set up. Then she deleted the photos from her phone and wiped the cache twice. At 5 a.m., she dressed in clean scrubs and walked to the mess hall. A handful of staff sat scattered at tables, eating breakfast in silence. The food smelled like cardboard and oil, but she took a tray anyway. Toast, coffee that tasted like it had been brewed yesterday. She sat alone near the window, watching the sky lighten from black to deep blue. Pierce entered at 5:23, holding his own coffee mug. He spotted her, hesitated, then walked over and sat down across from her without asking. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep." "New place. It takes time to adjust." He sipped his coffee, watching her over the rim. "I heard you were poking around the records room last night." Evelyn kept her expression neutral. "I was looking for orientation materials, policy manuals, that sort of thing." "At midnight?" "Like I said, couldn't sleep." Pierce set down his mug. "Let me be clear, Ms. Stone. We run a professional operation here. That means following protocols, following chain of command, not wandering around restricted areas without authorization." The door was unlocked. "It shouldn't have been." His voice dropped. "Dr. Haynes values loyalty. He values discretion. If you're going to work here, you need to understand that. We protect this facility, we protect each other, and we don't ask questions that don't need answers." Evelyn met his eyes. "What if the questions do need answers?" "Then you bring them to me or Dr. Haynes, not to some records room in the middle of the night." Pierce stood, picked up his coffee. "Consider this a friendly warning. The next one won't be." He left. Evelyn finished her toast, watching his back disappear through the doorway. She counted to 60, then followed at a distance. Pierce went straight to the administrative wing, knocked on a door marked private, and disappeared inside. Through the frosted glass window, she could see 2 figures, Pierce and someone taller, broader. They were talking, animated. Pierce kept gesturing in what looked like her direction. She turned and walked the other way before they could notice. At 6 a.m., the facility came alive. Shift change. Nurses and medics flooded the hallways, heading to patient wards, surgical prep, supply distribution. Evelyn joined the flow, keeping her head down, observing. The staff moved with efficiency but no urgency, like they were going through motions instead of saving lives. Several times she saw patients pressing call buttons that nobody answered. In one room, an IV bag had run dry and the pump was beeping, ignored. She ducked into the room, replaced the bag herself, silenced the alarm. The patient, a Marine with a leg wound, looked at her with dull eyes. "Thanks," he said. "How long was that beeping?" "Maybe 20 minutes." "Did anyone come check?" "Nope." Evelyn adjusted his blanket, checked his vitals on the monitor. Heart rate elevated. Blood pressure lower than it should be. "You feeling okay?" Leg hurts, but they said that's normal. She pulled back the blanket, looked at the surgical dressing. Clean, no visible drainage. But when she palpated the area around the wound, he winced. That hurt? Yeah. She peeled back the edge of the dressing. The wound underneath was red, warm to the touch, with early signs of cellulitis spreading from the incision site. Infection. Not advanced, but getting there. When's the last time someone changed this? Yesterday morning, I think. 24 hours. Surgical wounds should be assessed every 8. She recovered the dressing, made a mental note of his room number, and left before anyone could ask questions. At 7:30, she was summoned to the surgical wing. A nurse handed her a patient file and pointed to OR3. Dr. Haynes wants you to scrub in. Observe and assist. Evelyn took the file. Routine appendectomy. 18-year-old Army specialist. Symptoms for 36 hours, finally brought in when the pain became umbilical. Standard case. She scrubbed, gowned, and entered the OR. Haynes was already there, standing over the patient, scalpel in hand. He was older than his photos suggested. Late 50s, gray hair swept back, hands that moved with practiced precision but no passion. "You must be Rebecca Stone," he said without looking up. "Yes, sir." "I'm told you have trauma experience." "Some." "Good. We need people who don't freeze." He made the incision, clean and controlled. "Watch and learn." Evelyn positioned herself across the table, eyes on the surgical field. Haynes worked quickly, efficiently, found the appendix, assessed it, inflamed, not ruptured, and began the dissection. Standard procedure, nothing unusual, except he was rushing. Small things. The way he clamped the mesoappendix too aggressively. The way he didn't pause to ensure hemostasis before moving to the next step. A surgeon in a hurry. "Suction," he said. The scrub nurse complied. Blood pooled briefly, then cleared. Haynes tied off the appendiceal stump, removed the organ, and dropped it in a specimen container. "Close him up," he told the resident standing nearby. Then he stripped off his gloves, tossed them in the waste bin, and left the OR without another word. The resident looked at Evelyn. "He's always like that." "How long have you been here?" 4 months. "He always leave before the patient's closed?" "Most of the time. Says if we can't handle a simple closure, we shouldn't be in surgery." The resident started suturing. His technique was adequate, but his hand shook slightly. Nerves or exhaustion, Evelyn couldn't tell. She stayed until the patient was extubated and moved to recovery. Then she followed Haynes. He went straight to his office, large, corner room, windows overlooking the desert. Evelyn walked past slowly, glancing through the open door. Haynes was on the phone, voice low and sharp. "I don't care about the optics. We have contracts to fulfill and margins to maintain. If staff are complaining, replace them. If patients are complaining, sedate them." Pause. "No, I'm not joking. We're not running a charity here. We're running a business." He hung up, saw Evelyn in the hallway, and his expression shifted to something pleasant. Fake. "Ms. Stone, what did you think of the surgery?" "Textbook. As it should be. I've performed over 3,000 appendectomies. I could do them in my sleep." He leaned back in his chair. "Dr. Pierce tells me you were exploring last night. Looking for policy manuals. In the records room." The door was unlocked. Haynes smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Curiosity is a valuable trait, but so is discretion. I run a tight ship here, Ms. Stone. Everyone has a role. Everyone stays in their lane. You're here to assist, not investigate." "Understood. I hope so." He turned back to his computer, dismissing her. "You're scheduled for the night shift tonight, trauma bay. Don't be late." Evelyn left, walked straight to the nearest supply closet, and checked her phone. Encrypted message from Kincaid. "Evidence is good, but not enough. Need direct proof of negligence or financial malfeasance. Preferably both. You have 36 hours. She deleted the message. 36 hours. That meant she needed something bigger than incident reports and wire transfers. She needed a smoking gun. At noon, she found Sarah in the staff break room, eating lunch alone. Evelyn sat down across from her without asking. "We need to talk," Evelyn said quietly. Sarah glanced around, nervous. "Not here." Where? Supply building, east side, 20 minutes. Evelyn nodded and left. The supply building was a squat concrete structure set apart from the main facility. Inside it was dimly lit, stacked with boxes of medical equipment, linens, and pharmaceuticals. Sarah was already there, pacing. "You shouldn't have come to me," Sarah said. "If Haynes finds out, he won't. You don't know that. He has people everywhere, security, staff, even patients report back to him." "Then we'll be quick." Evelyn pulled out her phone, showed Sarah the photos she'd taken. "I have documentation, financial records, incident reports, but I need something more, something that proves intent." Sarah stared at the screen. "There's a patient, room 14, Army Ranger, came in 5 days ago with a GSW to the shoulder, clean through and through, should have been straightforward, but Haynes didn't like him, said he was too demanding, too loud." "What happened?" "Haynes delayed his antibiotics, told the nurses the Ranger was stable, low priority. By the time they started treatment, the wound was infected. Now he's septic. Haynes is documenting it as unforeseen complications, but it's deliberate neglect." "Is he still alive?" "Barely. ICU. Haynes has him sedated, says it's to manage pain, but I think he's just trying to keep him quiet until he dies." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Where's his chart?" "Locked in Haynes's office. He keeps the critical cases separate, controls the narrative." "Can you get me in there?" Sarah shook her head. "Too risky. Haynes has cameras, motion sensors. If you trip them, I won't." "You can't know that." "Yes," Evelyn said. "I can." Sarah looked at her for a long moment. "Who are you, really?" "Someone who's tired of watching people die for profit." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one that matters." Evelyn pocketed her phone. "I'm going in tonight, after midnight. I need you to create a distraction, something big enough to pull security away from the admin wing." "Like what?" "I don't know. Fire alarm, medical emergency, anything that gets their attention." Sarah's hands were shaking. "If this goes wrong, it won't." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Evelyn put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Your brother deserved better. They all do. Help me make sure he didn't die for nothing." Sarah closed her eyes, nodded. "Okay, midnight. I'll pull the fire alarm in the east wing. That should give you 10 minutes before they figure out it's false. 10 minutes is all I need. At 8 p.m. Evelyn started her shift in the trauma bay. Quiet night. Only 2 patients. One with a dislocated shoulder, another with a deep laceration from a training accident. She treated them both, documented everything, and kept her head down. At 10:47, a code was called in the ICU. Patient crashing. All available staff to respond. Evelyn ran with the others, arrived to find a young soldier in full cardiac arrest. The team descended on him. Compressions, airway, medications. Haynes appeared from somewhere, took over, barking orders. Evelyn watched from the periphery. The soldier's rhythm was a systole. Flatline. They pushed epinephrine, shocked him twice, kept compressions going. 5 minutes, 10, 15. "Call it," Haynes said finally. The resident looked up, sweating. "Sir? Time of death, 23:04. Call it." "But we could—" "I said call it." They stopped. The room fell silent except for the monitor's single, unbroken tone. The soldier was 20 years old according to his chart. Shrapnel wound to the abdomen, post-op day 3. He should have survived. Evelyn pulled his chart while the others cleared out, scanned the orders. Post-op antibiotics delayed by 6 hours due to pharmacy shortage. Pain management inadequate. Vitals not checked for 12-hour stretches. And at the bottom, a note in Haynes's handwriting. Patient stable. Routine monitoring sufficient. The soldier had died from preventable sepsis, just like Marcus. Just like how many others? She photographed the chart, then returned it to the rack before anyone noticed. At 11:58, she positioned herself near the admin wing. Sarah was across the facility in the east wing, ready. Evelyn checked her watch. 30 seconds. 20. 10. At exactly midnight, the fire alarm screamed to life. Lights flashed. Automated announcements blared over the intercom. Evelyn watched as security guards sprinted past her, heading east. She counted to 5, then moved. Haynes's office door was locked. but the lock was electronic, tied to the facility's security system. Evelyn pulled a small device from her pocket, military-grade RFID cloner she'd kept from her last deployment, and held it against the reader. 3 seconds. The light blinked green. She slipped inside, closed the door behind her. The office was immaculate. Desk clear except for a laptop and a phone. Filing cabinet in the corner, locked. Evelyn went straight for it, used a tension wrench and pick she'd improvised from surgical tools. 20 seconds and she was in. The top drawer held personnel files. The second held financial documents. The third, jackpot. Patient files for every critical case in the last 6 months. She pulled them, started photographing. Click, click, click. Marcus Riley, the young soldier who just died. 3 others, all with similar patterns. Delayed treatment, falsified documentation. Deaths marked as complications. She was on the 5th file when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Evelyn froze. The footsteps stopped outside the door. A shadow passed across the frosted glass. The doorknob turned. She moved fast, shoved the files back into the drawer, closed it silently, and dove behind the desk just as the door opened. Haynes walked in, phone to his ear. "I don't care if the alarm was false. I want a full sweep. Someone triggered it, and I want to know who." He crossed to his desk, sat down in the chair. Evelyn was 3 feet away, pressed flat against the side panel, barely breathing. "Yes, increase patrols and check the logs. If anyone accessed restricted areas tonight, I want them detained." He paused. "What do you mean someone was in the records room yesterday? Who?" Evelyn's heart hammered against her ribs. "The new hire, Stone." Haynes' voice went cold. "Find her, now!" He hung up, stood, and walked to the filing cabinet. Evelyn heard the drawer slide open, heard him rifling through files. Then silence. "Interesting," Haynes said quietly. He knew. Somehow he knew someone had been in his files. Evelyn's hand moved to the scalpel she'd pocketed earlier. If he looked behind the desk, this was going to get messy. But Haynes just closed the drawer, locked it, and left the office. The door clicked shut behind him. Evelyn stayed frozen for 30 seconds, listening. When she was sure he was gone, she stood, checked the hallway through the window. Clear. She slipped out, moved quickly back toward the trauma bay. Security was everywhere now. Guards checking rooms, staff being questioned. Evelyn blended in, grabbed a chart, pretended to review it while a guard walked past. "You see anything unusual tonight?" he asked. "Just the fire alarm." "Where were you when it went off?" "Trauma bay. Why?" He didn't answer, just moved on. Evelyn made it back to her quarters at 1:30 a.m., locked the door, shoved a chair under the handle, and uploaded the photos she'd taken to Kincaid's server. Then she destroyed the RFID cloner, flushed the pieces down the toilet, and lay on the bed fully clothed. Her phone buzzed at 2:15. "Kincaid. Received. This is enough. Extraction at 0600. Be ready." Evelyn deleted the message. 4 hours. She just had to survive 4 more hours. At 3 a.m., someone knocked on her door. Soft but insistent. She sat up, hand on the scalpel. "Miss Stone," Pierce's voice. "Dr. Haynes would like to see you in his office. It's 3 in the morning. He's aware. He said it's urgent." Evelyn stood, moved to the door, didn't open it. "What's this about?" "I'm not at liberty to say. Please come with me." She weighed her options. Run and confirm their suspicions. Go and try to talk her way out. Or fight, which would burn everything. She opened the door. Pierce stood in the hallway with 2 security guards behind him. "This way," Pierce said. They walked through empty corridors, past dark patient rooms, toward the admin wing. Evelyn calculated distances, exits, obstacles. If this went sideways, she had maybe a 15% chance of making it to the perimeter fence before they shot her. Haynes's office door was open. He sat behind his desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. "Come in, Ms. Stone. Close the door." Evelyn entered. The guard stayed outside. Pierce remained in the doorway. "Sit," Haynes said. She sat. Haynes studied her for a long moment. "I've been thinking about you. About your file. Your credentials are impeccable, almost too impeccable. So I made some calls." Evelyn said nothing. "Do you know what I found?" "Nothing." Rebecca Stone exists on paper, but nowhere else. No social media. No credit history before 6 months ago. No medical school classmates who remember you. It's remarkable, really. A perfect ghost. I value my privacy. Privacy is one thing, a completely fabricated identity is another. Haynes leaned forward. Who sent you? DOD? Inspector General? Some congressional watchdog? Nobody sent me. I'm a nurse looking for work. Liar. His voice didn't rise, but the word cut like a blade. I know what you are. Military. Probably special operations given your skill set. Someone sent you to dig up dirt on my operation, and I want to know who. You're paranoid. I'm cautious. There's a difference. Haynes stood, walked to the window. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me who you're working for. You're going to hand over whatever evidence you think you've collected. And then you're going to disappear, quietly. No fuss. And if I refuse? Haynes turned, smiled. Then you'll have an unfortunate accident. Training exercises are dangerous. People get hurt. Sometimes they don't make it. Evelyn met his eyes. You killed Marcus Riley, and that soldier tonight, and how many others? I run a medical facility under combat conditions. People die. It's tragic but unavoidable. You delayed their treatment to prioritize paying customers. That's not tragedy. That's murder. Haynes's smile disappeared. You have no proof. I have enough. Then where is it? Hidden on your phone? Uploaded to some server? He pulled out a small handheld device, pressed a button. Evelyn's pocket buzzed. Her phone. Electromagnetic pulse. Localized. Your phone is dead, along with any data on it. Evelyn's stomach dropped, but she kept her face neutral. The data was already uploaded. The phone was just a decoy. But Haynes didn't need to know that. You're making a mistake, she said. No, you made the mistake, coming here, thinking you could take me down. Haynes gestured to Pierce. Escort Ms. Stone to the detention block. Hold her until I decide what to do with her. Pierce stepped forward. Let's go. Evelyn stood slowly, calculated. Pierce was unarmed. The guards outside had sidearms but hadn't drawn them. If she moved fast... The door burst open. Sarah stumbled in, face pale, breathing hard. Dr. Haynes, we have an emergency. Multiple casualties incoming. IED strike. ETA 3 minutes. Haynes swore. How many? At least 8, maybe more. He looked at Evelyn, then at Pierce. Lock her up. I'll deal with her later. He pushed past Sarah, already moving toward the trauma bay. Pierce grabbed Evelyn's arm. You heard him. Let's go. They walked toward the detention block, a small wing in the back of the facility where Evelyn had seen guards posted earlier. Sarah fell into step beside them, eyes wide and terrified. As they passed the trauma bay, Evelyn saw the chaos. Nurses running, equipment being prepped, Haynes barking orders, real casualties, real emergency. Sarah hadn't been lying. They reached the detention block. Pierce unlocked a cell, gestured inside. In. Evelyn stepped in. The door clanged shut behind her. Pierce locked it, pocketed the key. For what it's worth, he said, you seem like a decent person. Wrong place, wrong time. Story of my life. He left. Sarah lingered for a moment, mouthing something Evelyn couldn't quite make out. Then she was gone too. Evelyn sat on the narrow cot, assessed her situation, locked in a cell. Extraction in less than 3 hours. No phone. No way to contact Kincaid. She looked at the lock on the door. Standard commercial grade. She could pick it if she had tools, but they'd searched her, taken everything except her clothes. She checked the ceiling. Solid concrete. The walls. Same. One small window, barred, too narrow to fit through even if she could remove the bars. The sound of rotors echoed in the distance. The medevac choppers arriving with casualties. The facility would be in full crisis mode for hours, which meant nobody was watching her. Evelyn stood, examined the cot. Metal frame. She wrenched off one of the support bars, twisted it until it broke free. Crude, but it would work as a pry bar. She went to the door, wedged the bar into the gap between the lock and the frame, and levered. The metal groaned. She adjusted her angle, applied more pressure. The lock mechanism bent, then gave way with a sharp crack. The door swung open. Evelyn stepped into the hallway, bar still in hand, and froze. Haynes stood 15 feet away, blood on his scrubs, holding a syringe. "Going somewhere?" he asked. Behind him, two armed guards raised their weapons. Evelyn didn't move. The metal bar hung loose in her right hand, heavy and cold. The guards had their weapons trained on her center mass, fingers on triggers. Stance, professional. Former military, both of them. They wouldn't hesitate. Haynes held the syringe up to the light, tapped it once. Clear fluid. Could be anything. Sedative, paralytic, something worse. "You're resourceful," he said. "I'll give you that. But resourcefulness only gets you so far when you're outgunned and outmanned." "You came back from the trauma bay," Evelyn said. "Must not have been much of an emergency." 8 casualties. All stable now. Turns out I work fast when I'm motivated. He took a step closer. The guards moved with him, maintaining formation. "Drop the bar." Evelyn calculated angles. Distance to Haynes, 12 feet. Distance to nearest guard, 8. The hallway was narrow, no cover. If she rushed Haynes, they'd shoot her before she got halfway. If she threw the bar, same outcome. Her only advantage was that Haynes wanted her alive, at least for now. Dead, she couldn't tell him what she'd done with the evidence. She dropped the bar. It clattered on the concrete floor. "Smart." Haynes gestured to one of the guards. "Restrain her." The guard holstered his weapon, pulled out zip ties, and moved forward. Evelyn let him secure her wrists behind her back, let him check the ties were tight. He stepped back, drew his weapon again. Haynes approached, syringe ready. "This is ketamine, high dose. You'll be unconscious in 30 seconds, compliant for hours. When you wake up, we're going to have a very frank conversation about who you work for and what you've done with the data you stole." "You think drugging me will make me talk?" "I think pain will. The ketamine is just to make transport easier." He moved closer, reaching for her arm. The lights went out. Not just the hallway, the entire facility. Emergency power kicked in 2 seconds later, bathing everything in red backup lighting, but those 2 seconds were enough. Evelyn dropped to the floor, rolled left. She heard a guard curse, heard boots scrambling. She slammed her shoulder into the wall, using the impact to shift her bound hands lower, then kicked out hard. Her boot connected with something solid. A grunt. 1 guard down. She rolled again, came up on her knees. The second guard was swinging his weapon around, trying to track her in the red light. She threw herself forward, drove her shoulder into his midsection. They went down together. His weapon clattered away. She brought her knee up into his ribs, once, twice. He tried to grab her, but couldn't get purchase with her hands behind her back. Haynes was shouting something. Evelyn couldn't hear over the blaring alarm, different from the fire alarm earlier. This one was sharper, more urgent. She scrambled to her feet, ran. Behind her, the guards were recovering, shouting. She heard Haynes scream, "Don't shoot her, you idiots! We need her alive!" The hallway branched, left toward the trauma bay, right toward the admin wing. She went right, sprinting in the red emergency lighting. Her wrists screamed against the zip ties, but she ignored it. Doors flashed past, a supply closet, a break room. She needed something sharp, needed to cut these ties. Footsteps behind her, closing fast. She ducked into the next room, found herself in a small office. Desk. Computer. Filing cabinet. She backed against the desk, fumbled behind her for anything useful. Her fingers found a letter opener, metal, not sharp enough, but it would have to do. She wedged it between the desk and the zip ties, sawed frantically. The door burst open. One of the guards, breathing hard, weapon up. "Don't move!" The zip ties snapped. Evelyn's hands came free. She grabbed the letter opener, threw it. The guard flinched, fired. The shot went wide, punched through the drywall behind her. She closed the distance before he could fire again, grabbed his wrist, twisted. The weapon fell. She swept his legs, put him face down on the floor, and delivered an elbow strike to the base of his skull. He went limp. She took his weapon. Glock 19, full magazine, 1 in the chamber. She ejected the mag, checked the rounds, slapped it back in. Muscle memory from a life she'd tried to leave behind. The alarm was still screaming. She moved to the door, checked the hallway. Clear for the moment. She could hear chaos in the distance, shouting, running. Something had happened, something big enough to kill the main power. Sarah appeared at the end of the hallway, waving frantically. "This way!" Evelyn ran toward her. "What did you do?" "Cut the main power line. Figured it might help." Sarah's face was flushed, terrified. "Security's going crazy. They think it's an attack." "Where's Haynes?" Trauma bay. He's trying to keep the casualties stable without full power. Generators are online, but they're only covering critical systems. I need to get to his office. Now. Are you insane? The whole facility is locked down, guards everywhere. Then I'll go through them. Evelyn checked the Glock again. You should get somewhere safe. There is nowhere safe, not anymore. Sarah's voice cracked. If he figures out I helped you, he won't. I'll make sure of it. How? By ending this. Tonight. They moved through the facility like ghosts, staying to the shadows, avoiding the main corridors where guards were rushing toward the trauma bay. Twice they had to duck into empty rooms while security swept past. The red emergency lighting turned everything into a nightmare landscape, all harsh angles and deep shadows. They reached the admin wing at 4:47 a.m. Haynes's office door was closed but not locked. He'd left in a hurry. Evelyn pushed inside, Sarah right behind her. What are we looking for? Sarah asked. Proof. The kind that can't be explained away. Evelyn went straight to the laptop on the desk, opened it, password protected. She tried the obvious combinations. Haynes's birthday, based on the personnel file she'd seen. Nothing. The facility's founding date. Nothing. Sarah was rifling through the filing cabinet. There's got to be something here. Financial records, patient files. He keeps the important stuff digital, easier to delete. Evelyn stared at the password prompt. Thought about what she knew about Haynes. Former Army surgeon. Founded Blackstone 8 years ago. Motivated by money, power, control. She typed, Blackstone, 2018. The laptop unlocked. Got it. She navigated to the Documents folder, found subfolders labeled by year, then by month, opened the most recent. Inside were spreadsheets, correspondence, contracts. She opened one at random. Wire transfer authorization, $3.2 million. Recipient, Trevor Haynes, personal account. Source, Redstone Defense Solutions. Date, 3 days after Marcus Riley died. She opened another file, an email chain between Haynes and a DoD contracting officer. Haynes was offering expedited care for VIP clients in exchange for contract renewals and increased funding. The contracting officer had responded, as long as it doesn't affect standard patient care. Haynes had replied, define standard. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She pulled a flash drive from the guard's tactical vest. She'd grabbed it when she'd taken his weapon and started copying files. Everything. Financial records, emails, patient outcome data that showed mortality rates 3 times higher than what Blackstone reported to DoD. How long is this going to take? Sarah asked, watching the door. 2 minutes. We don't have 2 minutes. Security is going to sweep this wing any second. Then keep watch. Sarah moved to the door, peered out. Clear for now. Evelyn kept copying. The progress bar crawled. 70%, 80. A folder labeled confidential, eyes only, caught her attention. She opened it. Inside were photos. Patients. Dead patients. With handwritten notes in the margins. Delayed treatment. Financial priority. Insufficient resources allocated. Acceptable loss. Marcus Riley's photo was there. So was the soldier who died tonight, and 15 others Evelyn didn't recognize. Haynes had been documenting his own crimes, keeping records like trophies. The flash drive finished copying. Evelyn ejected it, pocketed it, and stood. We're done here. They made it 3 steps into the hallway before the lights came back on, full power restored. The alarm cut off mid-wail, leaving a ringing silence, and then every speaker in the facility crackled to life. Haynes's voice, cold and clear. Attention all personnel. We have an active security breach. The subject is a female, mid-30s, blonde hair, armed and dangerous. She is to be detained on site. Use of force is authorized. I repeat, use of force is authorized. Sarah grabbed Evelyn's arm. We need to go. Now. They ran. Behind them, Evelyn could hear doors opening, boots on tile, radios crackling. The facility was waking up, turning its full attention on finding her. They reached a service corridor, less traveled, dimly lit. Sarah pulled her toward a maintenance access door. This leads to the vehicle depot. If we can get to a Jeep... The door at the far end of the corridor burst open. 3 guards, weapons drawn. Down on the ground, now! Evelyn raised the Glock, fired twice. Suppressive fire, not aimed to kill. The guards scattered, taking cover. She grabbed Sarah, pulled her through the nearest door. They were in a storage room. Medical supplies. Shelves stacked with boxes. One exit, the door they'd just come through. We're trapped, Sarah said. Evelyn was already moving, shoving boxes aside, looking for another way out. There had to be ventilation, access panels, something. Her fingers found a seam in the back wall. She pushed. A panel shifted. Here. They squeezed through into a crawl space, barely 4 feet high, running parallel to the main corridor. Evelyn pulled the panel closed behind them. They could hear the guards entering the storage room, shouting, searching. Where does this go? Evelyn whispered. I don't know. I didn't know it existed. They crawled. The space was tight, dark, filled with pipes and electrical conduits. Evelyn's knees scraped against concrete. Behind them, the sounds of the search grew fainter. After 50 feet, the crawl space opened into a larger area, a mechanical room. Generators, HVAC equipment, the smell of diesel and oil. There was an exterior door marked emergency exit only. Evelyn pushed it open. Desert air hit her face, still cool from the night. The sky was starting to lighten in the east. Dawn coming. They were on the north side of the facility, away from the main entrance. The perimeter fence was 100 yards away, topped with razor wire. Beyond that, empty desert stretching to the horizon. Can we make it? Sarah asked. We have to. They ran. The sand was loose, made running hard. Evelyn's lungs burned. Behind them, she heard the emergency door slam open. Shouts. Someone had seen them. Gunfire cracked. Rounds kicked up sand to their left. Evelyn zigged, pulling Sarah with her. The fence was 50 yards away. 40. 30. More gunfire. Closer this time. Sarah cried out, stumbled. Evelyn caught her, kept her moving. I'm okay, just clipped my leg. 20 yards to the fence. Evelyn could see blood spreading through Sarah's pant leg, but couldn't stop to check it. They hit the fence at full speed. Evelyn grabbed the chain link, started climbing. The razor wire at the top was going to be a problem, but she'd deal with that when a shot rang out, louder than the others. The chain link next to her face sparked. She looked back. Haynes was standing at the facility entrance, holding a rifle, not aiming at her, aiming at Sarah, who was halfway up the fence. One more move and she dies, he called out. Evelyn froze. Haynes walked closer, rifle steady. The guards flanked him, weapons ready but not firing. Come down, slowly, both of you. Evelyn looked at Sarah, at the blood running down her leg, at the terror in her eyes. Then she looked past Haynes, at the eastern horizon. The sun was just breaking, painting the sky in fire. And in that light, she saw them. 3 black helicopters flying low and fast, rotors thundering. Haynes saw them too. His expression shifted from triumph to confusion to fear in the span of 3 seconds. The helicopters descended on the facility like birds of prey. One landed directly in front of Haynes, rotor wash kicking up a sandstorm. Soldiers poured out, rifles up, surrounding Haynes and his guards. Drop your weapons. On the ground. Now. Haynes's guards complied immediately. Haynes himself stood frozen, rifle hanging loose in his hands, staring at the soldiers in disbelief. A figure emerged from the lead helicopter. Kincaid, flanked by 2 armed MPs. She walked straight to Haynes, ignoring the rifle. Dr. Trevor Haynes, you're under arrest for fraud, negligent homicide, and violation of military medical protocols. You have the right to remain silent. Haynes found his voice. You can't do this. I have contracts. I have protection. You had protection, past tense. Kincaid gestured to the MPs. Take him. They moved in, stripped the rifle from Haynes's hands, forced him to the ground, cuffed him. He was still sputtering protests when they dragged him toward one of the helicopters. Kincaid walked toward the fence, looked up at Evelyn. You cut it close, Captain. Didn't have much choice. Get down here. We need to debrief, and your friend needs medical attention. Evelyn helped Sarah climb down. The moment they hit the ground, a medic rushed over, started working on Sarah's leg. The bullet had grazed her calf, painful but not serious. Kincaid pulled Evelyn aside. Did you get it? The evidence? Evelyn handed her the flash drive. Everything. Financial records. Emails. Photos of patients he deliberately let die. He documented it all. Kincaid's expression hardened. Why the hell would he document his own crimes? Control. He wanted proof he had power over life and death. Probably got off on it. Jesus. Kincaid pocketed the flash drive. This is enough to bury him, and everyone who enabled him. What about the contracting officer, the one who knew what was happening? Already in custody. We picked him up an hour ago. Kincaid looked at the facility, where soldiers were now securing every entrance, rounding up staff for questioning. This is going to be a scandal. Congressional hearings, DOD investigations, the whole 9 yards. Good. Maybe it'll stop the next Trevor Haynes before he kills anyone. Kincaid studied her. You know you're probably going to have to testify. Public hearings. Your identity will come out. I figured. That going to be a problem? Evelyn looked at Sarah, who was being loaded onto a stretcher, pale but alive. Looked at the facility, where patients who'd been neglected and abused were about to get real care. Looked at the sunrise, still painting the sky in impossible colors. No, she said, it's not a problem. They flew Sarah to a military hospital in Germany. Evelyn went with her, sat by her bed while doctors cleaned and stitched the wound. Sarah was drifting in and out from the painkillers, but when she was lucid, she grabbed Evelyn's hand. Thank you, she said. You don't need to thank me. Yeah, I do. Marcus would have liked you. You already said that. Saying it again. Sarah's eyes fluttered closed. You saved lives. That matters. When Sarah was stable and sleeping, Evelyn stepped into the hallway, found Kincaid waiting. How is she? She'll be fine. Full recovery expected. Good. Kincaid handed her a phone. Webb called 4 times, said it's urgent. Evelyn took the phone, walked to a quiet corner and dialed. Webb answered on the first ring. Carter, where the hell are you? Germany? What are you doing in Germany? Finishing something I started. There was a long pause. The news is reporting that a military medical contractor was arrested for fraud and manslaughter. Blackstone Medical Services. Was that you? I can't talk about it. That means yes. Webb's voice softened. Tyler Brennan is asking about you. The kid you diagnosed. He wants to thank you. He doesn't need to. That's what I told him. He didn't listen. Another pause. When are you coming back? I don't know. Will you come back? Evelyn looked down the hospital corridor, at the nurses moving between rooms, at the patients being cared for by people who actually gave a damn. Maybe. That's not an answer. It's the best I've got right now. She hung up before he could respond. Kincaid appeared at her elbow. We need to talk about what happens next. I thought you said I'd have to testify. You will. But there's a gap between now and then. 3 months, maybe 4, before the hearings start. Kincaid crossed her arms. You could disappear again. Change your name, move to some small town, go back to temp work, or what? Or you could do something that matters. Permanent this time. No more running. What did you have in mind? Kincaid pulled out a folder, different from the last one, thicker. DOD wants to establish an independent medical oversight division, military and civilian facilities, inspections, audits, direct reporting to Congress. They want someone to run it, someone who can't be bought, someone who gives a damn. Evelyn took the folder, didn't open it. Why me? Because you walked into a hostile facility, collected evidence that will put 12 people in prison, and got out alive. Because you see things other people miss. Because you're too stubborn to quit and too honest to compromise. Kincaid's voice dropped. And because every patient who gets screwed over by the system deserves someone like you in their corner. Evelyn opened the folder. Inside was a job description, a salary offer that was insulting low, and a list of facilities flagged for investigation, 23 names. Some she recognized. Most she didn't. This is a full-time position, she said. Yes. Based in Washington. Yes. With congressional testimony and media scrutiny and all the things I've been avoiding for 6 months. Yes. Kincaid met her eyes. I'm not going to lie to you. This job will make you enemies. Powerful people who don't want oversight, who profit from the status quo. You'll get death threats, legal challenges. They'll try to discredit you, intimidate you, destroy you. Sounds fun. It won't be, but it'll matter. Every facility you clean up, every doctor you hold accountable, every patient who gets proper care because you refuse to look away, that matters. Evelyn closed the folder. I need to think about it. You've got 24 hours. Evelyn spent the next day walking the streets of Ramstein, the town outside the airbase. She bought coffee from a cafe where nobody spoke English and sat in a park watching pigeons fight over breadcrumbs. Her phone buzzed periodically. Messages from Kincaid. From Webb. From a number she didn't recognize that turned out to be Tyler Brennan's mother, thanking her for saving her son's life. She didn't respond to any of them. At 6 p.m., she went back to the hospital. Sarah was awake, sitting up, eating terrible hospital food. You look like hell, Sarah said. Thanks. What's wrong? Evelyn sat in the visitor's chair. They offered me a job, running medical oversight for DOD facilities. That's amazing. Why do you look like someone died? Because taking it means I can't disappear anymore. Can't run, can't hide when things get hard. Sarah set down her fork. You want my advice? Not particularly. I'm giving it anyway. Marcus spent his entire adult life serving something bigger than himself. He believed in duty, in honor, in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. And he died because someone forgot that those things mattered. Sarah's voice cracked. If you have a chance to make sure his death meant something, to stop it from happening to someone else, you take it, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard. Evelyn looked at her hands. They were steady now, no tremor, no shake. The hands of someone who'd saved lives and taken them, who'd walked through fire and come out scarred but breathing. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll take the job. Sarah smiled, exhausted and relieved. Good. Now get out of here. I need to sleep, and you look like you need a drink. Evelyn stood, headed for the door, then paused. Sarah? Yeah? Your brother would have been proud of you. What you did took guts. What we did. Couldn't have done it without you. Sarah leaned back against the pillows. Go save the world, Captain. Someone's got to. Evelyn called Kincaid from the hospital parking lot. I'm in. Good. Report to the Pentagon in 2 weeks. We'll get you set up with an office, staff, and a stack of cases that'll make Blackstone look like a parking violation. Can't wait. Carter? Yeah? Thank you for doing this, for giving a damn when it would have been easier to walk away. Evelyn hung up, stood in the parking lot watching the sun set over the German countryside. Somewhere in the distance, church bells were ringing, calling people to evening services, to community, to connection. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to Webb's number, hesitated, then typed, I'm coming back. Not sure when, but I'm coming back. His response came 30 seconds later. Good, we'll be here. She pocketed the phone, walked to the rental car Kincaid had arranged, and drove back toward the airbase. The road was empty, the sky turning purple and gold, and for the first time in months, Evelyn felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. 2 weeks later, she stood in a Pentagon conference room facing a panel of generals, admirals, and DOD officials. They asked her questions about Blackstone, about her methods, about her qualifications. She answered honestly, holding nothing back. At the end, a 3-star general leaned forward. Ms. Carter, you understand that this position will make you unpopular. Medical personnel don't like being second-guessed. Facility administrators don't like being investigated. And the people profiting from the current system will do everything in their power to stop you. I understand, sir. Then why take the job? Evelyn thought about Marcus Riley, dying alone in a room because someone decided his life was worth less than money. About Tyler Brennan, being poisoned by his own mother. About the 8-year-old with the crushed chest and the 1,000 other patients she'd seen suffer because someone chose profit over care. Because someone has to, she said, and I'm tired of walking away. The general smiled. Good answer. Welcome to the team. They gave her an office in the basement, small, no windows, a desk, a filing cabinet, and a computer that took 3 minutes to boot up. Her staff consisted of 2 recent college graduates who looked terrified and 1 retired master sergeant who looked bored. This is it? Evelyn asked Kincaid. Budget's tight. You'll have to make do. Kincaid dropped a stack of files on the desk. These are your first cases. Start with the one on top. Army Medical Center in North Carolina. Reports of understaffing, inadequate equipment, patient complaints being ignored. Evelyn opened the file, read the first page, felt the familiar anger building in her chest. When do I start? You already have. 3 days later, Evelyn walked into Redwood Valley Medical Center. The ER was busy, just like the night she'd left. Ambulances coming and going, patients in varying states of distress, the organized chaos of people trying to save lives. Webb saw her from across the trauma bay. His face lit up and he crossed to meet her. You came back. I said I would. I didn't believe you. He looked at her, really looked. You're different. What happened? I remembered who I was. And who's that? Someone who doesn't run anymore. Webb smiled. Good. Because I've got a case I want your opinion on. Young woman, persistent abdominal pain, normal labs, normal imaging, and I can't figure out what's wrong. Show me. They walked to the patient's room together, and as Evelyn reviewed the chart, asked questions, palpated the abdomen, she felt it again. That sense of purpose, of being exactly where she was supposed to be. The diagnosis came to her in 30 seconds. Ovarian torsion, intermittent, which explained why imaging was normal. She'd need emergency surgery. Webb made the call. The patient was prepped and in the OR within 20 minutes. They saved her ovary, saved her fertility, saved her from months of misdiagnosis and pain. Afterwards, Webb found Evelyn in the break room. How did you know? Experience, pattern recognition, luck. That's not luck. That's skill. He sat down across from her. Stay. Join our staff. We could use someone like you. I can't. I have a job in Washington. Doing what? Making sure places like Blackstone don't exist anymore. Webb processed that. So you'll be traveling, investigating, testifying. Pretty much. But you'll come back sometimes? Evelyn looked at him. At the hope in his eyes, the exhaustion in the lines around his mouth, the quiet determination that made him good at his job. Yeah, sometimes. I'll take it. She left Redwood Valley that night, drove to the airport, caught a red-eye back to Washington. When she landed, her phone had 17 new messages. Cases flagged for investigation, congressional staffers requesting briefings, lawyers trying to intimidate her before she'd even started. She deleted the lawyer messages, responded to the staffers, opened the case files. There was work to do, a lot of work. People to hold accountable, systems to fix, lives to save. And for the first time in a long time, Evelyn Carter wasn't afraid of any of it. She walked out of the airport into the cold D.C. morning, flagged a cab, and gave the driver the Pentagon's address. As they pulled away from the curb, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the area code. Germany. She answered. Carter. Captain. It was Sarah's voice, but strained, scared. I need help. What's wrong? I'm back in the States. They released me yesterday. And someone's been following me. Black SUV. Tinted windows. They've been outside my apartment for the last 6 hours. Evelyn's blood went cold. Did you call the police? They said without a direct threat they can't do anything. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. I think it's Haynes's people, the ones who got away, the ones who weren't arrested. Evelyn leaned forward, gave the driver a new address. Where are you? Sarah gave her location. An apartment complex in Arlington, 20 minutes away. Stay inside, lock the doors, don't answer for anyone, I'm on my way. She hung up, checked the Glock she'd kept from Blackstone. Still loaded, still ready. The cab driver glanced in the rearview mirror. Everything okay back there? Just drive faster. They reached Sarah's apartment in 15 minutes. The black SUV was parked across the street, engine running. Evelyn paid the driver, climbed out, and walked straight toward the SUV. The driver's window rolled down. A man in his 50s, suit and tie, cold eyes. Can I help you? You can stop following my friend. I don't know what you're talking about. Evelyn pulled her badge, the one DOD had issued her 2 days ago, and held it up. Federal investigator, who are you working for? The man's expression didn't change. I'm just waiting for someone. In front of a witness's apartment, after your boss was arrested for murder. She leaned closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drive away, right now. And if I see you or anyone like you within a mile of Sarah Riley, I'm going to make it my mission to find out who's paying you and bury them so deep they'll need a mining crew to dig out." The man stared at her. Then he smiled, thin and humorless. "You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be the first time." He rolled up the window, put the SUV in gear, and drove away. Evelyn watched until he turned the corner, then went inside. Sarah buzzed her up. She was waiting at the door, pale and shaking. "They're gone," Evelyn said. "For now, but they'll come back." "Not if I have anything to say about it." Evelyn pulled out her phone, called Kincaid. "I need protective custody for a witness, Sarah Riley. Someone's trying to intimidate her. I'll have a team there in 20 minutes. "Make it 10, Kincaid sighed. "You've been on the job for 72 hours and you're already making enemies." "Good. Means I'm doing it right." The protective detail arrived in 8 minutes. 2 federal marshals, armed and professional. They swept the apartment, declared it secure, and took up positions inside and outside. Evelyn sat with Sarah until she stopped shaking, made her tea, listened to her talk about Marcus, about the trial, about the fear that never quite went away. "It's going to be okay," Evelyn said. "You can't promise that." "No, but I can promise I won't stop until the people who killed your brother pay for it. All of them. Not just Haynes." Sarah looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "You mean that?" Every word. When Evelyn finally left, the sun was setting again. Another day gone. Another fight started. She stood on the sidewalk, watching the marshals through Sarah's window, and pulled out her phone. She had work to do, cases to investigate, people to protect, a system to fix one broken piece at a time. But first, she had a message to send. She typed it out carefully, encrypted it, and sent it to every facility administrator, every contracting officer, every bureaucrat who'd turned a blind eye while people died for profit. "My name is Evelyn Carter. I work for the Department of Defense Medical Oversight Division. If you're cutting corners, if you're prioritizing profit over patients, if you think nobody's watching, you're wrong. I'm watching, and I'm coming for you." She hit send, pocketed the phone, and started walking. Somewhere in the darkness, someone read that message and felt fear for the first time in years, and Evelyn Carter smiled. The congressional hearing room smelled like old wood and anxiety. Evelyn sat at the witness table, microphone in front of her, cameras positioned at 3 angles to capture every word, every expression. Behind her, the gallery was packed. Press, military brass, family members of patients who died in facilities like Blackstone. Sarah Riley sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on Evelyn's back. Senator Patricia Hammond, chair of the Armed Services Committee, leaned into her microphone. "Ms. Carter, you've submitted extensive documentation regarding Blackstone Medical Services. Before we review that evidence, I'd like to ask you a question. Why did you take this assignment?" Evelyn looked at the senator. Silver hair, sharp eyes, a reputation for tearing witnesses apart when they lied and protecting them when they told the truth. "Because a Navy SEAL died from preventable sepsis while a defense contractor's daughter got priority treatment for a sprained ankle," Evelyn said. "And I was tired of pretending that was acceptable. You were hired as a temporary nurse. Your assignment was to observe and report. Instead, you broke into restricted areas, copied confidential files, and engaged in confrontations with armed security personnel. Some would call that reckless. Some would call it necessary. Which is it? Both." A ripple of murmurs went through the gallery. Hammond silenced it with a look. "Let's talk about Dr. Trevor Haynes," Hammond continued. "He's facing criminal charges, multiple counts, but his lawyers are arguing that he was operating within the scope of his DoD contracts. That resource allocation decisions, even difficult ones, are part of battlefield medicine. How do you respond to that?" Evelyn pulled out a folder, opened it. Dr. Haynes received $3 million in personal payments from defense contractors whose family members received expedited care. He documented patient deaths with notes like acceptable loss and financial priority. That's not battlefield medicine. That's murder for profit. "Objection," a voice from the back. Evelyn turned. Haynes's lawyer, a man in an expensive suit with a face like a shark. "Ms. Carter's characterization is inflammatory and prejudicial. My client is not on trial here," Hammond interrupted. "This is a hearing counselor, Not a courtroom. Sit down or leave. The lawyer sat. Hammond turned back to Evelyn. The evidence you collected, how did you obtain it? I broke into Dr. Haynes' office and copied files from his personal laptop. Without a warrant. Without authorization. Yes. You understand that makes it inadmissible in criminal proceedings? I understand that it makes it admissible in this hearing, and that what you do with it determines whether more people die or whether we finally hold someone accountable. Hammond leaned back, exchanged looks with the other senators on the panel. Ms. Carter, I'm going to be frank with you. Your methods were questionable. Your conduct violated multiple regulations. If you were still active military, you'd be facing a court-martial. I know. But the evidence you obtained has already led to 17 arrests, including 4 DoD contracting officers and 2 facility administrators. The Inspector General has opened investigations into 23 additional facilities, and we've identified a pattern of systemic abuse that goes back almost a decade. Hammond's voice hardened. So I'm going to ask you directly, was it worth it? Evelyn thought about Marcus Riley, about the soldier who died on her watch at Blackstone, about Tyler Brennan and the 8-year-old with the crushed chest and every patient who'd ever been dismissed, neglected, or sacrificed because someone decided their life was worth less than money. Yes, she said, it was worth it. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Senators asked questions. Evelyn answered. They showed the photos Haynes had taken, the financial records, the emails where he'd explicitly discussed prioritizing paying customers over military patients. The gallery gasped. Reporters scribbled notes. Someone in the back started crying. When it was over, Hammond gavelled the session closed. This committee will reconvene in 2 weeks to hear testimony from Dr. Haynes and the implicated contracting officers. In the meantime, the evidence submitted today will be forwarded to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. Ms. Carter, you're dismissed. Evelyn stood, legs stiff from sitting. As she turned to leave, Hammond called out, Ms. Carter? She stopped. Thank you. For giving a damn when it would have been easier not to. Evelyn nodded, didn't trust herself to speak, and walked out. The hallway was chaos. Reporters shoving microphones in her face, cameras flashing, questions coming from every direction. Security pushed them back, cleared a path. Sarah was waiting at the end of the corridor, smiling through tears. You did it, Sarah said. We did it. They walked outside into cold November air. Washington was gray and wet, the kind of weather that seeped into your bones. Evelyn pulled her coat tighter. What happens now? Sarah asked. Criminal trials. More hearings. More investigations. I meant for you. Evelyn looked at the Capitol building behind them, at the marble and columns and the weight of history pressing down. I keep working. 23 facilities flagged for investigation, probably more once word gets out. You can't do that alone. I'm not alone. I've got 2 college kids and a retired master sergeant who looks like he wants to murder me half the time. Sarah laughed, raw and genuine. I want to help. You've done enough. No, I haven't. Marcus would want me to keep fighting, and I'm not going to let his death be for nothing. Sarah's voice steadied. Hire me. I'm a nurse. I know the system. I know what to look for. Evelyn studied her, saw the grief still there, probably always would be, but also saw something else. Determination, purpose. The same thing that had kept Evelyn moving when she wanted to disappear. Okay, she said, but it's not going to be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. Yeah. They walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, sat in a corner booth, and started planning. Which facilities to target first, what evidence they'd need, how to protect witnesses from retaliation. Sarah took notes on her phone, asked questions, pushed back when Evelyn's plans got too aggressive. You can't just break into every administrator's office, Sarah said. Eventually you're going to get caught. Then I'll be more careful. Or you could get warrants, work with law enforcement, do this the legal way. The legal way takes months, years. People die while we're filing paperwork. And you end up in prison if you keep breaking laws. Sarah set down her phone. I get it. You want justice, so do I. But you're no good to anyone if you're locked up. Evelyn knew she was right, hated that she was right, but the anger that had driven her for months, the need to act, to fix, to save, it didn't care about warrants and due process. Her phone buzzed. Kincaid, I need to take this. She stepped outside, answered. Yeah? Turn on the news. Any channel. Evelyn pulled out her phone, opened a news app. The headline made her breath catch. Breaking. Defense contractor CEO arrested in medical fraud scandal. Below it, a photo of a man in handcuffs being led from a corporate office. Richard Ashford, CEO of Redstone Defense Solutions, the same company that had paid Haynes $3 million. She scrolled down. The article detailed wire transfers, shell companies, falsified medical reports. And at the bottom, a quote from the DOJ. This investigation was made possible by evidence obtained through the courageous efforts of whistleblowers and federal investigators. Evelyn went back inside, showed Sarah the phone. It's starting, Sarah said. They're going after everyone. Not everyone, not yet. Ashford's just the tip. Evelyn sat down, pulled up a list she'd been building. Names of administrators, executives, politicians who'd enabled the system. There are 53 people on this list who knew what was happening and did nothing. Or worse, profited from it. You can't take down 53 people. Watch me. Over the next 3 months, Evelyn traveled to 14 facilities. Each time she went in quietly, posed as a consultant or temporary hire, spent days observing, documenting, collecting evidence. She found understaffing so severe that patients waited hours for basic care. Found medications being diverted and resold. Found one facility where the administrator was billing for services never provided and pocketing the difference. Each investigation led to arrests. Each arrest led to more investigations. The list of 53 names started shrinking, but it came with a cost. Death threats arrived by email, by mail, one spray-painted on her apartment door. Someone slashed her tires. Another time, she came home to find her apartment ransacked, everything destroyed except her laptop. They'd wanted her to know they could get to her any time. She moved to a secure building, changed her routines, started carrying the Glock everywhere. Webb called once a week, checking in. You need to slow down before someone gets hurt. People are already getting hurt. That's why I'm doing this. I meant you. I can take care of myself. That's what worries me. You think you're invincible. I don't think that. Then act like it. Take a day off. Sleep. Eat something that's not coffee and spite. She hung up on him. But the next day she took a break. Drove to Redwood Valley, walked into the ER unannounced. Webb saw her from across the trauma bay, dropped his chart, and crossed to her in 5 strides. You look terrible. Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? I don't know. Tuesday? It's Saturday. He grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the break room. Sit, I'm getting you food. He came back 10 minutes later with a sandwich, soup, and coffee. Real food, not vending machine garbage. Evelyn ate while he watched, arms crossed. Better? He asked. Yeah. Good. Now talk to me. What's going on? She told him about the investigations, the arrests, the threats, the exhaustion that was starting to feel permanent. He listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You're burning out, he said finally. I'm fine. You're not. You're running on fumes and stubbornness, and eventually you're going to crash. He leaned forward. I've seen it before. Doctors who work themselves to death because they can't say no, can't delegate, can't trust anyone else to do the job right. And you know what happens to them? They burn out. They break. Completely. And then they're no good to anyone. Evelyn stared at the sandwich, half-eaten. I don't know how to stop. Then learn. Or let me help you. How? Come back here, 1 week a month, work regular shifts, save lives the normal way. Give yourself a break from the investigations and the threats and the weight of trying to fix an entire broken system by yourself. I can't just abandon. I'm not asking you to abandon anything. I'm asking you to pace yourself. To remember that you're human, not a machine. His voice softened. The work will still be there in a week. But if you collapse, who's going to do it? She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she was fine, that she could handle it. But sitting in that break room, eating a sandwich someone had made for her, feeling the exhaustion in her bones, she knew he was right. 1 week a month, she said, starting now. I have a hearing on Tuesday, then starting Wednesday. She agreed. Spent the next 5 days at Redwood Valley, working regular shifts, treating patients with straightforward problems that had straightforward solutions. A broken arm, pneumonia, a kidney stone, things she could fix in hours instead of months. It helped. Not completely, but enough. On her last day, she was leaving when she saw a familiar face in the waiting room. Tyler Brennan, the kid she'd diagnosed with digoxin poisoning. He was taller now, healthier, guitar case slung over his shoulder. "Miss Carter?" She stopped. "Tyler, I heard you were here. I wanted to thank you for figuring out what was wrong, for saving my life." "You don't need to thank me." "Yeah, I do." He shifted the guitar case. "I'm starting college next month, music education. I'm going to teach kids how to play. And I get to do that because you gave a damn when nobody else did." Evelyn felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, opening. "You're going to be a great teacher." "I hope so." He hesitated. "My mom's in prison now for what she did. And I know I should hate her, but I just feel sad. Like she was sick too, and nobody helped her until it was too late. Sometimes people don't want help. Sometimes they don't know how to ask for it." Tyler adjusted the guitar case. "Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks. And if you ever need anything, like a character reference or testimony or whatever, I'm here." He left before she could respond. Webb appeared at her elbow. "Good kid." "Yeah. You made a difference in his life, in a lot of lives. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. But it's something. And sometimes something is all we get." Evelyn went back to Washington the next day, found her office filled with new case files. Sarah was already there, sorting through them, creating a priority list. 27 new complaints, Sarah said. 15 look credible. 5 are urgent. How urgent? 2 patients died last week. Facilities are claiming natural causes. Families are saying negligence. Evelyn grabbed the top file, started reading. By midnight, they had a plan. By morning, they were on a plane to Texas. The facility was smaller than Blackstone, but equally corrupt. Staff overworked to the point of incompetence. Equipment outdated and poorly maintained. And the administrator, a man named Charles Voss, was siphoning funds meant for patient care into personal investments. Evelyn and Sarah spent 2 weeks there documenting everything. Then they turned it over to the FBI. Voss was arrested a week later, along with 3 staff members who'd helped him. It became a pattern. Investigate. Document. Report. Arrest. Repeat. By month 6, 32 people had been charged. By month 9, 47. The list of 53 was almost gone. And then Haynes went to trial. Evelyn sat in the courtroom every day of the 3-week proceeding, watched as prosecutors laid out the evidence, the wire transfers, the emails, the photos of dead patients with Haynes's handwritten notes. Sarah testified, describing her brother's death in detail that left the jury pale and shaken. Other family members testified. Medical experts testified. Even some of Haynes's former staff testified, granted immunity in exchange for cooperation. Haynes's lawyers tried everything. Argued he was just following industry standards. That resource allocation was necessary in combat medicine. That he'd saved thousands of lives, and the few deaths were tragic, but unavoidable. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 25 years, no parole, asset forfeiture, and a permanent ban from practicing medicine. As the marshals led Haynes out of the courtroom, he looked at Evelyn. His expression was empty, hollowed out. Not angry, not defiant, just empty. She felt nothing, no triumph, no satisfaction, just exhaustion and the knowledge that it was finally over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Evelyn pushed through them, said nothing, kept walking until she found a quiet park 2 blocks away. Sarah followed, sat down on the bench beside her. "We won," Sarah said. "Yeah." "You don't sound happy." "I am, I'm just tired." "Then rest. The work will still be there tomorrow." Evelyn looked at her. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." They sat in silence for a while, watching people walk past. Families, couples, people living normal lives, unaware that the system designed to protect them had been rotting from the inside until someone decided to burn it down and start over. Evelyn's phone buzzed. Kincaid. We need to talk. My office. 1 hour. She made it in 45 minutes. Kincaid was waiting, along with the Secretary of Defense and two people Evelyn didn't recognize. Miss Carter, thank you for coming. The secretary gestured to a chair. Please sit. She sat. I'll get straight to it. The work you've done over the past year has been extraordinary. 47 arrests, systemic reforms implemented across 63 facilities. Congressional oversight strengthened. You've accomplished more in 12 months than most agencies do in a decade. Thank you, sir. Which is why we'd like to expand your division. Triple the staff. Increase the budget. Give you the resources to tackle this on a national scale, not just military facilities. Evelyn blinked. National scale. VA hospitals, private contractors, civilian facilities with government contracts, the entire medical infrastructure. The secretary leaned forward. What you exposed at Blackstone wasn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a much larger problem, and we need someone who can fix it. That's a massive undertaking. It is, which is why we're offering you a promotion. Director of National Medical Oversight, cabinet-level position, direct reporting to me and the president. Evelyn sat back, trying to process. I'm not a politician. We don't need a politician. We need someone who can't be bought, intimidated, or distracted. Someone who gives a damn. Kincaid spoke for the first time. We need you. What about the investigations I'm already running? You'll have a team to handle those. Your job will be strategic, setting policy, identifying targets, protecting the people doing the work from the people trying to stop them. Evelyn thought about the death threats, the slashed tires, the ransacked apartment, thought about Tyler Brennan and Marcus Riley and every patient who died because someone decided profit mattered more than lives. I'll need full autonomy, she said. No political interference, no budget cuts when I investigate someone powerful, no protection for administrators who think they're untouchable. You'll have it. And I want Sarah Riley as my deputy director. She's earned it. The secretary nodded. Done. Do we have a deal? Evelyn extended her hand. We have a deal. She called Sarah from the parking lot. How do you feel about a promotion? What kind of promotion? Deputy Director of National Medical Oversight, cabinet adjacent. Full benefits, and a target on your back the size of Texas. Sarah laughed. When do I start? Monday. I'll be there. Evelyn drove home, but instead of going to her apartment, she kept driving, found herself on the highway heading west, pulled over at a rest stop 2 hours later, staring at a map on her phone. Redwood Valley was 8 hours away. She called Webb. You awake? It's 2 a.m. What do you think? I'm driving to you. I'll be there by 10. Why? Because I need to tell you something. In person. She hung up before he could respond. The drive was long and quiet. Desert gave way to mountains, then to farmland. The sun rose over fields of wheat and corn, painting everything gold. Evelyn stopped once for gas and coffee, then kept going. She pulled into Redwood Valley at 10:47 a.m., went straight to the hospital, found Webb in the ER, just finishing a shift. You drove 8 hours to tell me something in person, he said. Yeah, it must be important. It is. She took a breath. I've been offered a promotion, national director. It's going to be bigger, harder, more dangerous than anything I've done so far. Congratulations. But I'm going to need help. Someone I trust to tell me when I'm going too far, when I'm burning out, when I'm forgetting that I'm human. Webb smiled. And you drove 8 hours to ask me to be that person? I drove 8 hours to tell you I'm trying, to do this the right way, to not destroy myself in the process. She met his eyes. And yeah, I'm asking for help. If you're willing. I'm willing. He stepped closer. But I have a condition. What? You take 1 week off every month. No negotiations, no emergencies. Just time to breathe. Deal. And you let me take you to dinner tonight, somewhere that's not a hospital cafeteria or a truck stop. Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in months, maybe years, something light and warm and terrifying. Deal, she said. They went to a small Italian place downtown, talked about everything except work. Webb told her about his residency, about the patient who'd made him want to be a doctor, about the mistakes he still regretted. Evelyn told him about growing up in Montana, about joining the military because she didn't know what else to do, about the first life she'd saved and the first one she'd lost. By the time they left, it was midnight. Webb walked her to her car. "You're driving back tonight?" he asked. "Yeah, I have meetings Monday. Be careful." "I always am." He kissed her, quick and uncertain, like he wasn't sure if it was allowed. She kissed him back, slower, more certain. When they pulled apart, he was smiling. "I've wanted to do that for a while." "How long?" "Since the night you diagnosed that kid with the pneumothorax. You were standing in the trauma bay, covered in blood, looking at me like I was an idiot for missing it. And I thought, I want to know this woman." Evelyn laughed. "I did think you were an idiot." "I know. It was attractive." She drove back to Washington with the windows down, the night air cold on her face. When she got home, the sun was rising. She showered, changed, and went to the office. Sarah was already there, along with the 2 college kids, now promoted to junior investigators, and the master sergeant, whose name was Frank, and who'd finally stopped looking like he wanted to murder her. "Welcome to day 1, Evelyn said. "We've got a lot of work to do." Over the next year, they built something unprecedented. A team of 40 investigators, analysts, and medical experts, a database tracking complaints, outcomes, and patterns across 3,000 facilities, a hotline for whistleblowers protected by federal law, and a reputation that made administrators nervous and patients hopeful. They investigated 73 facilities, found corruption in 41, secured convictions in 38, saved lives in all of them. Evelyn testified before Congress 6 more times. Each time she wore the same Navy suit, answered the same skeptical questions, provided the same irrefutable evidence. And each time more reforms were passed, more oversight implemented, more lives protected. The death threats continued. So did the attempted break-ins and the harassment. But Evelyn had a security detail now, and Frank, who turned out to be former Special Forces and took personal offense to anyone threatening his boss. 1 year became 2. 2 became 3. And then one morning, Evelyn woke up and realized something had changed. The anger that had driven her for so long, the burning need to fix everything, to save everyone, it was still there. But it didn't consume her anymore. She'd learned to pace herself, to delegate, to trust her team. She'd learned to live. On the 3rd anniversary of Haynes's conviction, Sarah organized a memorial for Marcus. Small gathering, just family, friends, and the people who'd fought to make sure his death meant something. Evelyn spoke, brief and honest. Marcus Riley was a warrior. He served with honor. He deserved better than what he got. We all did. But because of him, because his sister refused to let his death be forgotten, we've changed a system that had been broken for decades. We've saved lives, and we're going to keep saving them. That's his legacy. That's what matters. Afterwards, Marcus's mother pulled Evelyn aside. She was older, worn down by grief, but there was something steady in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for giving a damn about my son when the people who should have cared didn't. He deserved it. So did you, for carrying this weight, for making it matter." She pressed something into Evelyn's hand, a medal, Marcus's bronze star. "He'd want you to have this, as a reminder that the fight was worth it." Evelyn closed her fingers around the medal, felt the weight of it, the promise. "I won't forget." 6 months later, Evelyn stood in the same congressional hearing room where she'd testified 3 years earlier. But this time, she wasn't the witness. She was receiving an award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, for exceptional contributions to public health, patient safety, and government accountability. The president hung the medal around her neck, shook her hand, and leaned in close. "You've done remarkable work, Director Carter. The country owes you a debt it can never fully repay." "Just doing my job, sir. If everyone did their job the way you do yours, we'd live in a very different world." The ceremony ended. Photos were taken. Hands were shaken. And then Evelyn walked outside into the afternoon sun and found her team waiting. Sarah, Frank, the junior investigators, not so junior anymore, Webb, who'd driven down from Redwood Valley to surprise her. "How does it feel?" Sarah asked. "Heavy? The medal or the responsibility?" "Both." Webb stepped forward, kissed her cheek. "I'm proud of you." "Don't be. I'm just getting started." "I know. That's why I'm proud." They went to dinner, all of them, at a loud restaurant where nobody recognized Evelyn and the wine was cheap and the laughter was real. For a few hours, she wasn't the director of National Medical Oversight. She was just a woman having dinner with friends, celebrating a victory that had cost everything but given back more than she'd ever expected. At the end of the night, after everyone had left, Evelyn walked back to her apartment alone. The streets were quiet, the city settling into sleep. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the temp shift at Redwood Valley that had changed everything, the moment she'd walked into Blackstone and decided to fight instead of run, the lives saved and the lives lost, and the weight of carrying both. She thought about Marcus Riley, about Tyler Brennan, about the 8-year-old with the crushed chest and every patient who'd ever been dismissed, neglected, or forgotten. And she made a promise, to them, to herself, to everyone still fighting to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. She wouldn't stop, wouldn't quit, wouldn't let the weight of broken systems crush the people they were supposed to protect, because someone had to give a damn. And she'd learned that someone could change everything. Evelyn Carter went to bed that night with Marcus's bronze star on her nightstand and the Presidential Medal of Freedom hanging on the wall. She slept without nightmares for the first time in years. And when she woke up the next morning, she went back to work, because there were still facilities to investigate, still lives to save, still a system to fix, one broken piece at a time. And she was just getting started. The end.